Good morning once again. Mabuhay ug madayaw. Good morning and welcome to Pag Andam sa Panahon. Andam na ba mo? Sa mga Bisaya, andam na ba mo? Are you ready? Pag Andam sa Panahon, an online workshop on climate change communication. I am Derf Mais, Mayong Buntag, Mabuhay ug madayaw. I'm very excited to be with you all, and I'll be guiding you through this informative and engaging workshop. By the way, this is a two-part workshop, and I think Ma'am Jill will explain also a bit. No, ang first part nito is asynchronous film showing of mga kwento ng klima documentary. So if hindi niyo pa napanood, so the link was sent to your email. Kindly check the asynchronous streaming of that particular documentary. Before we dive into the program, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you, for joining us today. It's a Saturday, the first day of July, and we have a diverse group of individuals ranging from students and educators to media professionals who are all eager to enhance their understanding. Lalo na ako, I really want to understand climate change and how do you communicate about this particular topic. We are grateful to have the Media Educators of Mindanao spearheading this workshop together with our partners, Daghang Salamat, PanahonTV, Oscar M. Lopez Center, PAGASA, and Davao City Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office. Daghan kayong salamat. Today, we are honored to have Ms. Jill Palarga, the chairperson of MEM, for the opening remarks and an overview of the workshop. Please give her a virtual round of applause.
Hello, good morning. So let me just share my screen just a little quickly. Ayan. Okay, so maayong buntag sa tanan. Dito naman po tayo, another workshop. Hindi pa napapagod si Mem, no? So, ratsyada lang strike while the iron is hot. Okay, and because we believe that this is a very urgent topic also, no, that we should look into. So, pag-andam sa panahon, no, just to give you a background how we came about. So we want to ask this question. So do you know that about the internet's carbon footprint? Diba? While we're doing this webinar, we're actually producing some carbon footprint. And another thing, there's also such thing as climate change denial, diba? So, and that is very dangerous. And do you know the term greenwashing? Like yung salpakan lang ng anything, any brand or any product, and nalalagyang eco something, just to say that it's environmental friendly. So it's a kind of a marketing strategy, but it's not really authentically green, diba? So it's called greenwashing. Have you encountered that? And then, as we send emails, actually there is an impact also in the environment. Lalo na, we're mostly online, so that's the thing we also need to think about. Even while browsing our social media feeds, there's also an impact on climate change on that. Okay. So according to the UN, these are the factors that affect wise decision making related to climate change. So one is, of course, the information disorder that we have right now. And while there is disorder, there's also an information overload. And then opposite to that, while there is information overload in one perhaps community or one side of the world, in other parts of the world, there's limited access to information. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, climate change denial and many conspiracy theories are going around. So with this information, ang daming taong naniniwala on these theories, and that makes us understand less what climate change is all about. And if you understand less, then we won't do anything about it, right? So UNESCO came up with the concept of green MIL, or green media information literacy. This refers to the key set of skills already included in the definition of MIL, but this time it's precisely aimed at supporting citizens' capacity to deal with existing information overload on environmental issues. No? So that's why this is very important to us as communicators, as media and communication educators. So what green MIL can do is it can ensure dissemination of reliable scientific information related to climate change, and it should bridge a perceived gap in trust and transparency between the government, climate scientists, media outlets, and the public. All right. And this topic is very important to MEM, no, Media Educators of Mindanao, because the lives of families living in the most remote and vulnerable areas of Mindanao are endangered by conflict. And of course, no, they were greatly affected by COVID-19. But of course, medyo, although they say tapos na ang COVID-19, but of course, the effects are still there, no. And then, of course, three things, no, and they all start with letter C: conflict, climate emergency, and COVID. Now, these are things that really hamper the development of Mindanao. So that's why we're doing this. So MEM, no, we are a Mindanao-based nonprofit organization of media and communication teachers and practitioners advocating to transform Mindanao through media education. So we are a growth-centered organization. That's why we won't stop in giving you trainings like this, no, because we really want to help our teachers grow. And not only our teachers, but of course all our stakeholders in that, of course, those are students and as well as media and communication practitioners. So our mission, first, we want to enhance, like I said, enhance the capacities of our media educators. We want to enrich the media experience of our consumers. That's why soon, no, we'll be coming out with educational content also on our platforms. And we want to engage in meaningful collaborations. And hence, we have so many partners for this endeavor. And we want to embody the values and principles of conflict sensitivity in media. So I always show this infographic, no, to show how MEM operates. So if MEM is like an atom, okay, so in the middle, in the nucleus, no, pinaka inaalagaan namin dito sa MEM are the K to 12 teachers. So these are teachers teaching MIL or subjects that are really that need media literacy, because a lot of these teachers are not formally equipped, okay, not formally equipped with media education. Therefore, nakabalot sa kanila, no, we have the higher education teachers who are also our members, and we also have members here, our media and communication practitioners. So tulungan kami. So while we help each other, no, parang we're embracing each other, we teach the most vulnerable and we also help. So this is how we call this we nurture the culture of teachers teaching teachers. Okay, so we consider media practitioners as educators as well. And so how do we make these programs work? Of course, we need to have funding partners, very important, you know, we have to have money to run this program. So we have present partners that help us with this. And of course, we have knowledge partners, and that's who they are right now here in this workshop. No, we have PAGASA, PanahonTV, OML, no. So they are our knowledge partners. They will be providing us the lecture today. So that is MEM, and we are an atom, okay, and we are part of the big picture. So we're part of this big network of fact checkers and like-minded, you know, advocacy organizations. And isa na yung goal namin, we want the Philippines to become better. But particularly for MEM, our main area of focus is Mindanao. So we are like an organization like PAMIL, you know, Philippine Association of Media and Information Literacy, and PACE, pero our concentration is really Mindanao. So we don't compete with these organizations. We work with them. No, we work with many organizations. Okay, so that's why, you know, today we're going to have 4 wonderful speakers, and then in the after we're going to have a workshop. So that's why we came up with this, um, advocacy that I think we should take on climate change communication as one of our major advocacies in MEM, because as I mentioned earlier, climate emergency is very important or is very urgent in Mindanao. So we envision this to be a series starter, no? So that's why our topics right now, medyo parang, if you say, these are kind of basic, yes, because we have to start somewhere. We have to start at step 1. And then if you continue to journey with us on this workshop, then we will have series 2, series 3, and then, no, until we can really fully be equipped, no, to do climate change communication and bring this to our classrooms. Kasi that's the most important thing, because we're catering to media educators here. Okay, so now just like to mention, I really like to take this. I was just conversing this topic with my 2 good friends, Adonna and Kato. No, they are my classmates back in college and my former colleague back in GMA. So yun din nakakatuwa kasi if you have friends who, think the same way, who share your advocacy, ang daling mag-invite. So ngayon pa lang, I really like to thank Donna and Kato, for accepting this invitation to partner. And through them, we were able to partner with PAGASA. Okay, so as I've explained, as Sir Durf explained earlier, no, this program, the program design of this is two-part. So we integrated our Escuela Salida program. So what is the Escuela Salida program here? Escuela Salida program is this. No, it has three components. First, we show a film. So this could be on site or it could be asynchronous streaming. And then after the showing of the film, then you're supposed to do a synthesis. So it could either be an asynchronous study, or in this case, we're doing this webinar. And we also provided you a study guide. So if you already watch the film, watch the documentary, at the end of the assessment, diba? So you were given that free study guide, which was designed by Mem. Also, I'd like to credit Ma'am Merly. If she's here, she was the one who made the study guide for this Escuela Salida program, particularly for this series. And then after the synthesis, then, after watching the film and after learning learning things in the webinar, what's next? Of course, the next component would be social impact. So we need to apply this. So that's why we included social impact as the third component. And so at the end of this workshop in the afternoon, we're going to introduce to you an opportunity for you to volunteer or to apply these learnings, no, in a very practical and a very in a very civic engagement way. Okay, so that's the framework of the Escuela Salida program integrated in this online workshop on climate change communication. So, like I said, so there was a pre-webinar activity. So if you really want to receive a certificate of completion for this, and if you've joined this workshop now and you haven't seen the documentary yet, it's okay. We can watch the documentary later and answer the assessment form afterwards, and then do the workshop activity this afternoon, and then answer the evaluation so that we can issue you your certificate of completion. Diba? Because after all, we're all educators here, and so we understand the purpose of these assessments. Okay? All right. So that's it for me, and I hope we really have a productive day. It's going to be a long day again, but we promise you that we have the best speakers to give you the exact knowledge that you need right now, at least for this series 1 of our Pag Andam sa Panahon online workshop on climate change communication. And thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Ma'am Jill, and kayong salamat. No? Very busy si Ma'am Jill and wala na naitulog. Thank you once again, Ma'am Jill. And I would like to acknowledge all the participants one by one unta, no? But definitely wala na tayo time to acknowledge each one. But thank you very much once again, like what Ma'am Jill mentioned, that this is not only exclusive to media educators or teachers or students. No, we have here also from the media, no, the media practitioners or the professionals. We have here from the City Information Office also, and I saw from DX DC, I think. But definitely this is something that me personally, this is my first time to attend this type of seminar, this topic, no? Napaka-importante, napapanahon. And again, with the network of Ma'am Jill and the Media Educators of Mindanao, we brought together the best of the best in terms of climate change communication. And yes, isa-isahin natin later, no, kung makakaya natin ang mga participants. They keep on coming, pero we are 37 in the room. So sabi ni Ma'am Jill kanina, tingnan din natin yung green MIL. Very interesting, Ma'am Jill. Now, by the way, no, we have a virtual background. Medyo si Ma'am Jill lang at ako naka-on ng camera for this time. But we have the virtual background available to you. Nasa chat, nasa group chat na link where you can download your virtual background. And also, Sir Enzo is here. Naka-stormy weather ang kanyang background, and Ma'am Jill. No time to explain, but definitely that says a lot. Mine is a green grass of home, and I hope you enjoy also the virtual background later. No, we'll see also the other participants. But anyway, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin with our first speakers. Gaya ng sinabi ni Ma'am Jill, no, we are very much honored to have them today. Our first speaker graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Science degree in Chemical Engineering from Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan. She topped the meteorologist training course at the World Meteorological Organization WMO Regional Training Center as class valedictorian. She was also an Australia Award Scholarship awardee and finished her Master of Science degree in Environmental Science at the University of Sydney, Australia. Presently, she holds the position of Weather Specialist 1 as a local weather forecaster, meteorologist, and climatologist at the Mindanao PAGASA Regional Services Division. Here today to talk about what we need to know about climate change. Let us all welcome Ms. Desiree Flores.
Uh, Thank you, Sir Derv, for that warm introduction. Thank you also, Ms. Jill, for inviting PAGASA. So on behalf of our Weather Services Chief, Anthony Joseph Lucero, so I am here also with the local climatology team, Ms. Arian Shuson and Mr. Prince Wilson AU. So let me share my screen. So is the screen visible already?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm loud and clear, ma'am po.
Yes po,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
So this morning, I will be sharing to you Climate Change 101. So what is climate change all about? Is climate change really happening? So, and the basics of climate change. So the outline of my presentation, I will be giving you the introduction, the basic concepts about climate and weather, to the historical climate variability and climate change. I will also be sharing to you the future climate change or the projections of PAGASA, and then the summary. So for the introduction, we should first distinguish the difference between weather and climate. So what is weather? So weather refers to short-term changes in the atmosphere. So if I'll ask you, what is the weather for today, or what is the weather for the next hours, for the next few days, or for the next week? So the answers are, for example, it will be cloudy, it will be partly cloudy, it will be sunny, or we will have isolated rain showers today, we will have heavy rains today, there will be a possibility of flooding. So that refers to weather. On the other hand, climate refers to atmospheric change over longer periods of time. So climate, when we say what is the climate of a certain place, so there are 4 climate types in the Philippines, and my colleague, Ms. Shuson, will be able to discuss it further in her presentation after me. So this is the information timeline of all the products that PAGASA is providing to the public. So we have here historical climate change and variability, which refers to our climate normals and climate trends. When we say climate normals, it refers to the 30-year average of what a certain area is experiencing. And when we say climate trends, it will show us if whether there is an increasing trend in our daytime temperature, in our nighttime temperature, or is it decreasing, and what is also the behavior of our rainfall. And these climate normals and climate trends are our data, climatological data for the past decades. And the purpose of this is for long-term planning of our decision makers and the disaster managers and all the concerned individuals now when it comes to weather and climate. And also for the climate monitoring and assessment, the Mindanao PAGASA Regional Services Division issues a monthly climate assessment of the previous month. And we also issue monthly climate outlook. So what will be the state of our climate for the next few months? And for the weather forecasts, this refers to this will help us or our disaster managers for emergency preparedness. For example, if there will be flooding, the possibility of flooding in the next few days is possible, or will there be typhoon, or will there be a tropical cyclone that is coming? So stuffs like that. For our future climate change, so PAGASA also has products for climate projections. And in a short while, I will be sharing these to you as well. So climate, there will be historical climate change and variability in my presentation, and there will also be the future climate change, which refers to the climate projections of PAGASA. So the question is climate change really happening, or is it just climate variability? So what is the difference between the two? Climate change is defined by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change last 2007, that it refers to any change in climate over time, whether due to natural variability or a result of human activity. So climate change is actually a result of natural variability and human activity. This is also agreed by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The said organization said that climate change refers to a change of climate that is attributed directly or indirectly to human activity, which alters the composition of the global atmosphere, in addition to natural climate variability. So both of them agree that climate change is a result of natural variability and human activity. What is climate variability? It refers to shorter-term fluctuations in climate, such as those caused by the El Niño Southern Oscillation, or what we call the ENSO phenomenon. So for those who are not familiar with ENSO, ENSO is actually naturally occurring. It is not climate change. It's naturally occurring. It's a climate variability, and it results from the interaction between the ocean and the atmosphere. So if the ocean is hot or is warm and the atmosphere does not respond to the warmness of the ocean, it's not ENSO. So it should be an interaction between the ocean and the atmosphere in the central and the eastern equatorial Pacific, or the CEEP. So this Nino 3.4, I would just like to highlight that whatever is happening in this area of the tropical Pacific has great impacts on the Philippines, most especially to us here in Mindanao. And there are three phases of ENSO. We have ENSO neutral, we have El Nino, and we have La Nina. So El Nino is the warm phase of ENSO because the tropical Pacific is warm during during El Nino phenomenon. And La Nina is the cool phase of ENSO because the tropical Pacific during La Nina is cold. So just briefly, I will explain the three phases. So ENSO neutral, so we have the trade winds here, or the easterlies, the winds coming from the east, will pull the warm pool of water here to the Philippines. So yeah, and then if it's a rule in meteorology, it's a basic rule in meteorology that warm air always rises and cold air always sinks. So if warm air rises, there will be a production of clouds, and these clouds are rain-bearing clouds. That's why during ENSO neutral, the Philippines is also experiencing rainfall. Now we receive rainfall even in ENSO neutral conditions. For La Nina, it's like an overreacting ENSO neutral. So the trade winds, or the easterlies, the winds coming from the east, will be much stronger, and the pool of water that will be located here in the Philippines will be warmer than normal. So what will happen is that there will be increased convection over the Philippines. So wait a minute, I'll just drink water. So I'm sorry for that. So there will be increased convection. That is why during La Nina, the usual effect to the Philippines is that we will have above normal rainfall. So Ms. Arian also will be able to discuss it thoroughly further after me for what will be the specific impacts of La Nina in La Nina and ENSO in the different regions of Mindanao. So for El Nino, it is the opposite of La Nina, where the trade winds, or the winds from the east, will be much weaker, and then the increased convection will be here near the international dateline. The waters over the Philippines will be cooler than normal, so there will be less convection here because, as I've said a while ago, warm air rises and cold air sinks. And when warm air rises, it will produce rain-bearing clouds. So if the water here in the Philippines is cooler than normal, so there will be less cloud formation over the Philippines. So that is why during El Nino, we usually experience like warmer temperatures and less rainfall because of that. So for the climate trends, these are the historical climate variability and climate change. So first, I will discuss to you the significant climate anomalies and events that happened in the year 2022. So as you can see here, the global average temperature, which refers to the land and the sea surface temperature, is the 6th highest since 1880. So since global records began in 1880. So last year was the 6th highest globally when it comes to sea surface temperature and even the land temperatures. And as you can also see here, we have Typhoon Hinamnor, the Typhoon Henry, which hit South Korea and have like for a 1 month amount of rainfall, it was achieved only for 3 days. So it's an extreme event, and like specifically also here in Mindanao, we have several floodings for the year 2022, like for the month of April. So we have impacts on BARM because of the indirect effects of tropical storm Agaton. So our stations have reached high records on that time, and also on October 2022 during the severe tropical storm Paeng. So BARM, several areas of BARM were also heavily affected, and there were lots of climatological extremes that were achieved. And even if you have heard also of the effects of shear line in Misamis Occidental last December 2022. So there were widespread flooding all over those areas. And in the Philippines, so on the year 2022, there were lots of flooding incidents that happened. But also in the other areas of the world or globally, we also have like the other areas experience like drought, like extreme heat waves. There are also like floodings everywhere in China and in Pakistan and the like. So I will just not explain these individually. So my point is there are lots of extreme events that are already going on right now all over the world. And in the Philippines, for the year 1951 to 2015, as you can see, the average temperature that we are experiencing, as you can see on the graph, is increasing throughout the years, now based on records. And even our annual minimum temperature or our nighttime temperatures, it is also increasing, and also our annual maximum or our annual daytime temperatures are also slightly increasing. So as you can see, for all the temperatures, there is an increase, in what we have observed and what we have felt. And for the global surface temperature, so this is the global land, as you can see. For the past, like from 1850 to around 1930, the global land temperature are cold. But during the recent years, like starting 1940s until present, so it is already warmer than average. So as you can see in the graph, there's really an increasing temperatures, even globally. And for the year 2022, so this refers to the land, the global land temperature anomalies. As you can see, year 2022 ranked as the 4th highest since 1850. And for Asia as well, so as you can see, there's also an increasing temperature, and 2022 ranked as the 2nd highest, warmest, or the 2nd warmest on record in Asia. And in Mindanao, so we are using our data here in Mindanao. So this is a product of Mindanao PRSD. Based on our records, year 2022 is the 8th warmest on record. This is the specific values or the anomalies for that. And as you can see for the trend, there's also increasing temperature, average temperature, the same as well. This is for the daytime temperature. So as you have observed for the year 2022, there were lots of months that we experienced rainfall. So that is why the daytime temperature is not really significant on year 2022. So it ranked as 20. But on the nighttime temperatures, as you can see, there's still an increasing trend here in Mindanao. And last 2022, the nighttime temperature in Mindanao, the average nighttime temperature in Mindanao is the 4th warmest on record. So this is the exact values for the anomalies. So this one also, as you can see, there's also an increasing trend. So all the temperatures, so my point here is all the observed temperatures in Mindanao, there is an increasing trend. So we are the Mindanao, not only globally, but also locally, there is a warming trend when it comes to temperature. So last year, 2022, there are also a lot of record-breaking climatological extremes. You can see this actually in our annual reports, because since 2019, MPRSD has already issued annual reports. And during my time here in MPRSD, the usual record-breaking climatological extremes are temperature, maximum temperature. But for the year 2022, lots of our stations have actually break their records when it comes to monthly rainfall or rainfall, like greatest 24-hour or daily rainfalls. So katugyong 2022, there were lots of rain, there were lots of water. And as you can see here, during April, during the month of April last year, lots of monthly rainfall was the records were broken. So, and this is the mean annual rainfall anomaly in Mindanao. So last year we are the 7th. Mindanao records as the 7th wettest, no, and 2011 topped all the data. So, and when it comes also to tropical cyclones, as you can see on the graph, so the total number of tropical cyclones or bagyo is actually decreasing, throughout the years. And the landfalling also, there is also a slight decrease throughout the years when it comes to bagyo. But however, the frequency of tropical cyclones or bagyo does not immediately equate that if there's a decreasing frequency or number of tropical cyclones that will enter our Philippine area of responsibility, it does not automatically relate to decreasing intensity. So so as you can see in the next slide, the very strong tropical cyclones throughout the years is actually slightly increasing. So the number of tropical cyclones based on records are decreasing, but its intensity is actually slightly decreasing. So what are the possible risks associated with drier conditions in the future? So we have there will be water shortage, there will be possible agricultural droughts, food insecurity, and the like, and possible associated risk also with warmer temperature. We will have heat exhaustions, heat strokes, and possible risk associated with enhanced rainfall. Also, there will be lots of flooding incidents and even rain-induced landslides and the like. So the question is, will these changes continue in the future? That will be answered by the climate projections that PAGASA is producing. So, but before that, we must first distinguish what is the difference between weather forecast and climate projection. Weather forecast refers to the state of the atmosphere or the weather situation at a particular location over a short period of time. So like, what will be the weather forecast for Davao today? So it will be, for example, it will be cloudy, it will be sunny, and there will be isolated rain showers or thunderstorms. And weather forecast is highly dependent on the initial state of the atmosphere. What is the state of the atmosphere and the ocean right now or a few hours before? However, climate projection is the likelihood of something to happen in climate several decades or centuries or tens and hundreds of years in the future. And it is a condition, it is based on the scenarios such as increase of greenhouse gases and the like. So, and for the tropical cyclones to affect the Philippines, so this is already climate projection. So out of 5 models, it says here that the frequency or the number of tropical cyclones that will enter or that will affect the Philippines in the next years, in the next decades or centuries will have a decreased number of tropical cyclones. So there are 3 out of 5 models that said that there will be a decrease of the number of tropical cyclones that will affect in the Philippines. So these are the this is the role of PAGASA actually for climate projections. We were tasked for climate scenario downscaling. So this just means that this just means that like the global models are being downscaled to local or regional models, so that the local aspects of our areas are being considered in the model. So the climate models are this one, BCM2, CNCM3, and MPH5. So the historical climate that we used for these for the first round of the climate projections that were produced by PAGASA is 1971 to 2000, and the future climate projections are for 2011 to 2040. So by this time, so the SRES were used. So SRES are actually based on projected greenhouse gases emissions in future years, and we consider the A1B or the medium range of projected greenhouse gases emissions, and the A2 or the high range of our GHG emissions. The seasonal variables that have projections are precipitation or rainfall, the minimum or the nighttime temperature, and the maximum or the daytime temperature. And the seasons that were considered are December, January, February, or DJF, and so on and so forth. So the references for these climate projections are being showed on the screen. And SRES actually covered a wide range of possible future atmospheric GHG concentration. However, the mitigations or the policies for climate change mitigations were not considered in SRES. So in order to resolve this, the IPCC released the representative concentration pathway. So these are the new climate projections that we have right now. And it includes also the cumulative concentration of greenhouse gas emissions. The main difference between RCP and the SRES, the new RCPs and the previous SRES, is that there were no fixed assumptions when it comes to population growth, economic development, or technology or associated technologies. So as what I've said a while ago, like climate projections are done from the global climate models which has lesser resolution, and the role of PAGASA is to downscale it to regional or local climate models with higher resolution, and in consideration also of the local aspects of the areas. So actually, you can access this in our website. We call it the CliMap. So it's an interactive GIS map. You can just click on the map, and then the provincial climate projections will be available to you. So you can see the climate projections and even the reference baseline data, or the 30-year average, or in our terms, we call it climatological normal. You can also download GIS files if you are into like mapping, and there are also downloadable assessment tools. So these are conceptualized and developed through DOST funded projects. So I will not dwell on that more. So this is actually how it looks in our website. So this is also, if you want to go to it, so you can scan the QR code here, or you can just click, or you can just type this URL address here, and then you will see it will bring you to this location, and then you will just click on it. And for example, if you want temperature, you just click on it, and then you just choose what you want to have, or what data you want to obtain. And then if you want also rainfall, you just click this part over here, and it will also give you rainfall. So by clicking, it will direct you to this form. So we'll just have to put a few of your details here, most especially your email address, because the climate or the climate projection maps will be sent to your email addresses. So climate projection maps, so the same as well, that the seasons that have climate projections are, like, for example, December, January, February, and then the RCP scenarios. So kanina, meron tayong SRES A1B at A2. So sa RCP naman, we have RCP 4.5, which refers to the medium emissions of greenhouse gases, and the RCP 8.5, which refers to the high range of greenhouse gases emissions. And the timelines that are included in these projections are year 2020 to 2039 for the early, and for the mid, years 2046 to 2065, and for the late timeline, we have years 2080 to 2099. So for the units, for the temperature, we have degrees Celsius. For the rainfall and the rainfall rates, we have millimeters per day. So these are the raw files that you can download. So the CLIRAM, this CLIRAM is actually the average of the temperatures, of the rainfall that we will be experiencing in the next few decades. And the SERAM is actually on the extremes, like what is the highest temperature, what is the warmest daytime temperature, or what is the coldest nighttime temperature, what is the greatest daily rainfall, and stuffs like that. You can also have, if you're into mapping, there are GeoTIFFs formats and shape files that you can also download, and you can put it in your ArcGIS maps or any GIS platforms. So these climate projection information are actually already being used by our local partners, most especially the LGUs, for their planning and decision making for disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. So as you can see here, so these are the seasons here. This is the observed baseline. So for the recent 30 years, what is the average, the 30-year average of, for example, here, this is temperature. The average temperature, and you can see here the RCP 4.5, or the moderate emissions of in consideration of moderate emissions of greenhouse gases. And you can also see RCP 8.5 for the high emission of greenhouse gases. So you can also see here the lower bound, the median, and the upper bound. So for example, let's look at June, July, August. So the baseline data here is 28.3. And in the future, it is projected that there will be an increase of about 1.4 to 2.2. So as you can also see, this is the hottest season during the year. And meron pang i-increase siya, so mas iinit pa talaga siya in the future. So that's what this table is saying. So our partners will now identify the potential impacts. For example, if they're in the agriculture sector, so if the temperature during JJA will be warmer than the usual or than the baseline, so what will be the effects on them? For example, there will be decrease in yield or production of their crops. So what will they do in order to mitigate that, or how will they adapt to that potential impact? So this is actually the climate projection and how our partners can use it. So I'll just show you an example. So this is how it's read. So this will be for the seasonal rainfall for the years 2036 to 2065 for Misamis Oriental. So for example, as you can see here, the highest rainfall for Misamis Oriental is actually falls during June, July, and August. So we have 615.7. And as you can see on the projected change for 2036 to 2065, there will be a decrease, no? As you can see, except for upper bound, there will be an increase, but for lower bound and median, both for moderate and high emissions of greenhouse gases, there will be a decrease on rainfall for June, July, August in Misamis Oriental in the years 2036 to 2065. So what will be the effects of this? What will be the potential impacts, and what will be, or how will we adapt? What will be the climate change mitigations that we will be able to do so as to adapt to this projected climate change, specifically on seasonal rainfall? So I will not just explain this one by one, but these are the guide questions that we give our local partners in order for them to fill out the said form. So this that is the CLIRAM, and this is the SERAM. So the temperature, the extremes, no? For example, in rainfall and temperature. So I've said a while ago, the extremes for the coldest nighttime or the warmest nighttime, coldest daytime, warmest daytime. So you can see in that form those kinds of parameters. So these are also the guide questions for our local partners, for them to be able to fill out the form. So these are the links to the reference and learning materials for the climate projections. So in summary, we learned that weather and climate are different. Weather are short-term and climate are long-term. And also, climate change is not the same with climate variability. El Nino, La Nina, they are not they are not effects of climate change, but they are just natural variability of our climate. And some impacts of El Nino include drought, leading to water shortage, food insecurity, and health problems. So I'll just also emphasize this one because the tropical Pacific, or the Pacific Ocean right now, we are already experiencing El Nino-like conditions. So we should also be prepared now for a possible effects of El Nino, which includes drought. And some impacts also of La Nina, which we have experienced for the year 2022, include flooding, rain-induced landslides, and overflowing of creeks and rivers. We have also seen in my presentation that there is a rising or increasing trend of temperature, not just globally, but also locally, which logically relates well to global warming. So our Mother Earth is actually warming. So there is also slightly decreasing number of tropical cyclones for the past 60 years. However, there is a slightly increasing number of intense or strong tropical cyclones for the past 35 years. And as you can see also, most models suggest that this will continue, that the frequency of mga bagyo nato will be decreasing, but its intensity or strength will be increasing. And I have also briefly shown to you the climate projections of PAGASA, which you can download at the PAGASA website. For example, the CLIRAM, or the average, and the SERAM, or the extremes. So that will be all for my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. Maayong buntag sa tanan.
Thank you very much, Miss Daisy. Isang virtual clap naman para kay Miss Daisy. Salamat. Daghan kayong salamat. Very enlightening presentation. And we really have gained valuable insights, understanding about climate change and Mindanao. No? Napaka-importante yung data. No? Napaka-importante yung data of about the climate. No? Nakakatakot at the same time. And I think kanina may weather disturbance tayo. Sorry about that. And yes, may reminders lang from MEM that this workshop is exclusive for MEM. Non-members are not qualified for the certificate. Those who have not done part 1 or the synchronous film viewing, you're required to do so after this workshop to complete the training you receive, and you will receive the certificate afterwards. So again, daghan kayong salamat, Miss Daisy, for that comprehensive report about Climate Change 101. Again, we would like to welcome ang kakapasok pa lang na mga participants, and also for teachers, if you have invited students or colleagues na hindi pa member ng MEM, kindly inform us ahead of time. May mga nakapasok kasi or nag-leak ng ating link, no? But anyway, we also have here from Davao City Disaster Radio. Good morning once again. Okay, let's proceed to our second speaker. Now it's time to introduce our second speaker. Our next speaker got her baccalaureate degree in environmental engineering at the University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines, Claveria campus in 2016. She went on to get master's degree in environmental engineering at the University of the Philippines, Diliman in 2018. She is a former science research specialist at the Department of Science and Technology, Region 10, assigned to handle disaster risk reduction and management related projects and activities. Presently, she is a weather specialist at the Mindanao PAGASA Regional Services Division under the Climatology Unit stationed at Molugan, El Salvador City. She provides lectures on topics related to climatology, meteorology, and disaster risk reduction management. She has been published in 5 scientific journals related to wastewater treatment and is still pursuing further education to become an expert in her field. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Ariane Shoson.
Hello, I would like to check my mic first. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay, I would like to share my screen.
We can see your screen now, ma'am, and you're audible. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, Mindanao, and thank you for that introduction, sir. To the facilitators of this workshop, the Media Educators of Mindanao, along with your partners, my co-speakers, the teachers, the media professionals, representatives from non-government organizations, students, and other guests, my greetings to you all. So it is a great honor to be invited in this online workshop to represent our very own Mindanao PAGASA Regional Services Division on behalf of our Weather Services Chief, Mr. Anthony Joseph R. Lucero, and of course to partner with you in communicating the impacts of climate change. So aron kitang tanan kabalo sa pag-andam sa panahon. So unsaon man nato pag-react og sakto kung wala ta kasabot sa atong palibot. So how can we properly make a response and action if we do not understand what is happening? How can we properly relay information if there's ambiguity on what we believe that we know? And what we believe we know might have changed, or what we know is true might be true to some but not to all. Isn't it mind-boggling how those questions relate to my presentation this morning? So anyway, what I am tasked to present to you this morning is the climate profile in Mindanao. So many question pag-asa. Ingon kay El Nino or dry season, nganong sigig ulan sa amo ang lugar? Ala, mag-El Nino daw. So wala nang ulan, wala nang tubig. So a high heat index, so init kaayo, then mauna gid lugar na ang El Nino. So walay bagyo, pero kusugang ulan, then nagbaha or naglandslide. So these are some of the issues thrown to us all the time. Why? Because of lack of knowledge or misunderstanding or misinformation. So who are the best platform to educate the people? That is you, the media and the teacher. So if it is very difficult to reach every individual at the present, what I envision is to strengthen the young ones and their knowledge on weather and climate so that we can have the future generation more andam sa panahon. So the focus of my presentation is that I want to make a tour you to all regions of Mindanao, and let us understand deeply Mindanao in terms of its climate profile. So let us differentiate once again weather versus climate. So we have here weather is the short-term state or condition of the atmosphere that can change over a short period of time, within minutes or hours. Example, it's a cloudy day, it's a rainy day, it's a sunny day. And it is influenced by air pressure, humidity, wind, cloudiness, and temperature. So while climate is a long-term pattern of weather or how the atmosphere behaves over a long period of time, by season, by year, or over many years. Example, these climatological normals of Science Garden in Quezon City. So it shows the amount of rainfall and temperature they expect to receive per month throughout the year. So with this information, they will know that during the dry season on the months of January to April, they need to conserve water. And on the months with abundant rains, they need to prepare for possible heavy rainfall or flooding and landslides. So simple analysis and preparation, right? Now to focus on Mindanao later, we will discuss what is the climatological normals in every region of Mindanao. So weather is what you get and climate is what you expect. So this was actually introduced by Ma'am Daisy. So take note, we have 4 climate types in the Philippines. The climate type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. So the type 1, the red color regions, they have 2 pronounced seasons, the dry from November to April and wet for the rest of the year. So maximum rain period coincides with the peak of the southwest monsoon on July to September. For the type 2, the blue color regions, they have no dry season. So every month they expect to receive rains. So with a very pronounced maximum rainfall during the last quarter of the year. So the type 3, the yellow color regions, this somehow resembles the type 1 or the red line. However, the dry season on the months of January to April is not really very dry. And on the rest of the months, it expects to receive rainfall to just about 200 to 300 millimeters per month. For the type 4, the green color regions, rainfall is more or less evenly distributed throughout the year. Now, focusing on Mindanao, we can see 3 colors, right? Blue, yellow, and green, and no red. So that means rain every month throughout the year is expected in the region of Mindanao. So rain is normal in Mindanao. The intensity and amount just vary in every climate type. So in Mindanao also, we are not directly affected on the issuance of PAGASA on dry and wet season because the data used to issue such advisory is from the climate type 1 region. So that's the reason why ngun kay dry season nga nung gaulan gihapon diri sa Mindanao. So in Mindanao, we have wet and very wet season. So not considering the impacts of El Nino and La Nina yet. So during El Nino, it doesn't mean that there is no rain anymore. So its impact is it reduces the amount of rainfall. Opposite is the La Nina that increases the amount of rainfall. So example, in this graph, let us say we are in El Nino condition. So let us look type 3, for example, the yellow line. So on the month of July, for example, normally we expect to receive about 270 millimeters of rain. But because of the effect of El Nino, in which it reduces the amount of rainfall, we might expect below 270 millimeters of rain. So for the month of July. If it is La Nina, we might expect about 270 millimeters of rain, above 270 millimeters of rain for the month of July. So I hope that is clear, and later on that will be further elaborated. So these are the summary of the differences of the climate types. So these are the factors that affects the weather and climate in Mindanao. So first, the geography and topography. So Mindanao is the southernmost part of the Philippines. So we are near the equator. We are surrounded by sea, generally mountainous and heavily forested. So second are the weather systems. Example are the tropical cyclones, the localized thunderstorms, the monsoons, the habagat and amihan, intertropical convergence zone, the shoreline, and the easterlies. The third is the climate variability, the enso neutral, excuse me, the El Nino and La Nina. So weather is affected greatly by geography and topography, including the land use, the proximity to the body of water, and the forest cover. Since we know that Mindanao is a mountainous island, example is orographic precipitation. So as the prevailing winds from the ocean rises and cools, orographic clouds form and serve as source of precipitation on this side of the mountain where the prevailing winds come from. So on the other side of the mountain, rainfall is usually low, and that area is said to be in a rain shadow. So these are the weather systems that greatly affect the weather and climate here in Mindanao. From June to September, we expect southwest monsoon or the habagat, localized thunderstorms, and tropical cyclone or bagyo. Southwest monsoon or the habagat is the hot wind coming from the southwest with ample amount of moisture that might bring cloudy skies and heavy rains, which may result to flooding and landslides, particularly on the western part of the Philippines. Then the localized thunderstorms are sudden heavy rains, which may result to flooding and landslides. It is localized because the area affected could be number of barangays only, or one municipality only, or number of municipalities only. And it usually lasts in few hours only. So this may also bring tornado or water spout, hail, thunder, and lightning. So in this season also, tropical cyclone or bagyo that enters the Philippine area of responsibility has greater chance of passing through the Philippine land masses. So this bagyo is a huge wind and cloud circulation towards a single low pressure center. So it may bring primary hazards such as strong winds, heavy rains, which may result to flooding and landslides and storm surge. So for the month of November to February, these are the weather systems that we highly expect. Still, the localized thunderstorms, the northeast monsoon or the amihan, the shoreline, and still the tropical cyclone. So the northeast monsoon or the amihan is the opposite of habagat, is a cold wind coming from the northeast, which may bring cold weather, drizzle, and strong winds, which may greatly affect the east part or side of the Philippines. While the shoreline is the line where the cold wind brought by the amihan meets the hot wind from the Pacific Ocean. So the shoreline brings cloudy skies and heavy rains, which may result to flooding and landslides that may greatly affect those regions near the line. So during the months of April to May naman, the weather systems that greatly affect the weather and climate of Mindanao are still the localized thunderstorms, ridge of high pressure area, intertropical convergence zone, and the easterlies. The ridge of high pressure area is the extension of the place or region with higher air pressure in the atmosphere. So in the Philippines, it could bring clear skies and hot weather mostly in the Luzon area. So the Intertropical Convergence Zone or the ITCZ is the convergence of cold wind from the northern hemisphere and warm wind from the southern hemisphere. So this foggy-like moving line here is the ITCZ. And this ITCZ is actually the series of low pressure area. So that is why sometimes it is called the belt of low pressure area that encircles the Earth. So ITCZ actually moves north in the northern hemisphere during summer and south in northern hemisphere during winter. So to imagine that, so throughout the year, it moves from southern part of the Philippines to northern part of the Philippines and then going south again, and the movement continues. So during the times ITCZ passes through the Philippines, it brings cloudy skies, heavy rains, which may result to flooding and landslides, thunderstorm, and lightning. And it is also breeding ground of tropical cyclones. So though most of these weather systems are associated with similar hazards, it is important on our side to understand and know the differences of these weather systems. And during the occurrence of any of these weather hazards, what is important is to highlight the impacts of these hazards and the possible area to be affected. So these are the weather systems that contribute to the amount of rainfall that the different regions of Mindanao receive. So some areas receive lesser, some areas receive greater. Please also take note some hazards they might bring aside from heavy rainfall. The strong winds, lightning, thunder, hail, tornado, water spout, and other possible impacts to every community. So focusing on Mindanao, rainfall distribution is greatly affected by these two monsoons, the Habagat and the Amihan. So remember that the Habagat is the southwest monsoon and the Amihan is the northeast monsoon. So during the Habagat in April to September, there are more rains in the central part of Mindanao. The darker the color, the greater the amount of rain. So while during the Amihan, on October to March, there are more rains received in the eastern part of Mindanao. So generally, those regions that experience or mostly affected by different weather systems receive more rains. So moving on, what is shown here are the regions of Caraga and Davao. So in terms of the rainfall normal. In these regions, we have 4 PAGASA synoptic stations at Butuan, Davao, Surigao, and Hinatuan. So the east part of the Caraga belongs to climate type 2. So while its west part belongs to climate type 4 along with the Davao region. So let us examine the Surigao station and Hinatuan, which are in the climate type 2 region. So based here on the graph and map, these areas receive abundant rain, which peak during the Amihan on October to March. The Butuan station naman and Davao station are in climate type 4 regions. So looking onto their respective graphs, so these areas receive rainfall that is less or more evenly distributed throughout the year. No dry season and every month there are rains. The peak of Butuan station is somehow similar with the Surigao station. So noting that these regions is also greatly affected by the Amihan and their proximity is also less. So this slide naman shows the region of Zamboanga Peninsula and Northern Mindanao. In Zamboanga Peninsula, we have stations in Dipolog and Zamboanga City, while in Northern Mindanao, we have stations in Malaybalay City and Lumbia before. Then it was transferred in Mulugan, El Salvador City, and transferred again the observation to Laguindingan Airport Station. So currently, we still have our regional office here in Mulugan, El Salvador City, and the Flood Forecasting and Warning Center for Presidio River Basin. However, the observation is in Laguindingan Airport Station. So we use the Lumbia station data from 1991 to 2013 because we need the 30 years average data from the same location of the station. So these two regions have two climate types, climate type 3 in the western part and climate type 4 in the eastern part. So these areas on the climate type 3 or the yellow one based on the readings from Zamboanga City Station and Lumbia Station. They receive rains every month throughout the year that somehow decreases during the months of January to May and peak during the months of June to October. So during the season of Habagat also. So the areas in the climate type 4 are the grade 1 based on the readings from the Polog Station and Malaybalay Station also receive rains every month throughout the year that increases in amount during the months of May to December. So lastly, the regions of BARM and Soxurgen. In BARM, we have station in Cotabato City, and in Soxurgen, we have station in General Santos Airport. The areas in and near BARM region belongs to climate type 3, with expected rains to be received every month throughout the year, but also increases during the months of May to December. So the areas of Sarangani, General Santos, Basilan, Tawi-Tawi, Sulu belong to climate type 4, with less or more evenly distributed amount of rainfall throughout the year. So we conclude that there is really no pronounced dry season in all regions of Mindanao. So every month we expect rainy days. So we bring umbrella always, either for the rain or for the sun. So depending on the weather of the day. So in terms of temperature naman, in the regions of Caraga and Davao, the minimum temperature or the nighttime temperature plays around 23 degrees Celsius to 25 degrees Celsius. That peaks during the month of May. So these regions experience warmest night during May and coldest night during January and February. So in terms of maximum temperature or daytime temperature, it plays around 29 degrees Celsius to 34 degrees Celsius, which peaks on the month of May also in all stations, and also during August and September in Hinatuan and Surigao stations. So in the regions of Zamboanga Peninsula and Northern Mindanao, in terms of minimum and maximum temperature, it usually plays around 22 degrees Celsius to 25 degrees Celsius and 30 degrees Celsius to 34 degrees Celsius respectively. So the coldest province in Mindanao is Bukidnon, with station in Malaybalay City. That has reading of minimum temperature that plays around 17 degrees Celsius to 19 degrees Celsius, and maximum temperature that plays around 29 degrees Celsius to 32 degrees Celsius. So throughout the year, the temperature somehow differs a little. So in the regions of BARM and Soxurgen, both have minimum temperature that plays around 22 degrees Celsius to 24 degrees Celsius, and peaks on April and May, and maximum temperature that plays around the 32 degrees Celsius to 34 degrees Celsius and peaks on April. So moving on, the El Nino Southern Oscillation or ENSO also affects the weather and climate of Mindanao. So during the neutral condition, winds from the east push the warm water toward the Western Pacific below Mindanao that causes the clouds to form over the Philippines. So that the country receives normal amount of rainfall. So as presented earlier on the climatological normals in terms of rainfall distribution. So during the La Nina, winds from the east become stronger and more warm water is pushed towards the Western Pacific, so in Mindanao surrounding seas. That causes more clouds to form over the Philippines so that the country receives more rain. During the El Nino, winds from the east become weak and able to push warm water towards the Western Pacific. So the sea surface temperature surrounding Mindanao becomes cooler than the normal. And the sea surface temperature in the Eastern Pacific becomes warmer than normal. So the result, clouds form away from the Philippines so that country receives lesser rain. So this is the PAGASA ENSO alert system status updated on June 27, 2023. So we are in El Nino alert, so which means that El Nino condition is present in the tropical Pacific, which may persist up to the first quarter of 2024. So its possible impact in our country, El Nino increases the likelihood of below normal conditions. which could bring negative impacts such as dry spell and droughts in some areas of the country. However, during this time, since southwest monsoon or habagat prevails this time, we expect above normal rainfall conditions in the western part of the country. Now you see that how it is wrong to conclude that El Nino means no rain or a very hot season, because there are also other factors that we need to consider, and the impacts might differ in different regions. Once, let us learn the possible impacts of and potential risk of from El Nino. So El Nino has a domino effect and its potential risk to agriculture. So let us say we have El Nino as a climate event that is occurring. Though it is a single extreme event, it can cause various impacts to communities at risk. So El Nino increases the likelihood of experiencing above normal temperature, having less rainfall, and possible occurrence of extreme events of heavy rainfall. You see, it doesn't mean no rain. So it decreases the amount of rainfall we receive, and yet, when heavy rains occur, it might be intensified. So secondary hazard from less rainfall could be dry spell or dry condition or drought, while for heavy rainfall could be flooding or landslides. So potential risk to agriculture and food security caused by above normal temperature could be heat stress, increase in pests and diseases, and increase in evapotranspiration. So for dry spell or drought could be decline in crop production due to late onset of rainy season, stunted growth due to dryness, underdeveloped kernel for corn, and decline in soil moisture availability. For flooding could be crop soaring at maturity stage and crops submerged in flood water. For landslides could be environmental degradation, damage to infrastructure, and deaths or injury. So the potential risk of El Nino to power and electricity sector caused by above normal temperature could be reduced generation efficiency and output, increased customer cooling demands, and stressing the capacity of the generation and grid networks. So for dry spell or drought could be lower reservoir levels and less water release, and hydroelectric power production decline. For flooding could damage to electrical installations and could lead to corrosion of electrical connections. So potential risk to water resources could reduce stream flow and groundwater due to less rainfall, less water supply and quality for dams, irrigation, and power generation, over extraction of groundwater. So sectoral impacts of El Nino. So we discussed already the impacts to agriculture and water resources. So in marine resources could be fish kills and red tide and decline in fish production. In human health, less water for hygiene and sanitation, higher cost of drinking water due to reduced supply, and increase in tropical, pulmonary, and food and waterborne diseases. So in environment, land or soil degradation, increase in forest or peatland fires, and poor air quality. So different weather systems and ENSO condition bring general hazards, but the impact and the risk might differ in different areas and sectors. So thus, we need to know on what sector do we belong. So how could this affect me and my community? And what possible preparation and intervention I must do? Now, going back to the climate profile of Mindanao, the next slides will show you what are the effects of ENSO in Philippine rainfall. So this slide will show you how the 3 ENSO condition affects the monthly mean rainfall distribution. So the first group in the left side, the ENSO condition here is neutral. So this is the normal amount of rainfall, and this will also be the basis for our comparison. So during El Nino, the group in the middle, it gives more rain in the western part of Luzon during the months of July to September. And that's El Nino, but it brings more rains on some parts of the Philippines. So focusing on Mindanao, the effect of El Nino causes below normal to way below normal rainfall in most regions of Mindanao. So during La Nina, it gives more rain in the eastern part of the Philippines during the months of October to February. So although the La Nina increases the likelihood of above normal rainfall, there are also regions in the Philippines that receive below normal to way below normal rainfall. So the general impacts of ENSO, both the El Nino and La Nina on rainfall. So in the region of Caraga, in Surigao City Station. So during El Nino, all throughout the year, we expect a deficit or decrease in the amount of rainfall they receive. So during La Nina, there is a possible surplus or increase in the amount of rainfall on the months of September to May. And a possible decrease on June to August during the season of Habagat, because most of the rains this season falls to the central part of Mindanao. So though it's La Nina, there are months we expect reduction of rain. So highest deficit and surplus might occur during the months of March to May. So dyan na mga panahon mas mararamdaman ng El Nino at La Nina. So in Hinatuan Station, generally, El Nino decreases the amount of rainfall and La Nina increases the amount of rainfall. So in both stations, highest deficit and surplus might occur during the months of March and May. So in Butuan Station, it behaves similarly in the Surigao Station. So knowing its proximity to Surigao City. Highest deficit and surplus might also occur during the months of March to May. So in Davao region, in Davao Station, generally, the effects of El Nino decreases the amount of rainfall, except on the months of September to November. Greater impacts of El Nino might be experienced during the months of December to February. So during La Nina, generally blue in color niya, so it increases the amount of rainfall, and greater impact of it might be experienced during the months of March to May. So in the region of Zamboanga Peninsula, in Dipolog Station, generally, the effect of El Nino decreases the amount of rainfall. Kaya red yan lahat on the El Nino side. While La Nina increases the amount of rainfall, so blue on the La Nina side. The significant impact of El Nino and La Nina might be experienced on the months of December to May. So mataas yung mga percentages on these months. In Zamboanga Station, the effect of El Nino will decrease the amount of rainfall, with deficit to be greatly felt during the months of December to May. So if it is La Nina, so generally, the general effect will increase the amount of rainfall except on the months of June to August. So the surplus rainfall might be greatly felt during the months of December to February. So in northern Mindanao, both the Malaybalay Station and Lagandingan Station exhibit the same response during El Nino and La Nina. So El Nino generally decreases the amount of rainfall, while La Nina increases the amount of rainfall. So deficit during El Nino and surplus during La Nina is greatly to be felt during the months of December to May. In the region of Bar, it exhibits unique response during El Nino and La Nina events. So in Cotabato Station, El Nino decreases the amount of rainfall except on the month of June to August, where habagat is expected. So the reduction or deficit in amount of rainfall during El Nino event might be greatly felt during the months of December to May. So during La Nina naman, half of the year, so they will expect decrease in the amount of rainfall in the months of June to November, but not that significant. So while half of the year, they will expect significant increase of amount of rainfall during the months of December to May. So in General Santos naman, in Sorsogon region, El Niño generally decreases the amount of rainfall, so with deficit to be greatly felt during the month of December to May. So during La Nina, it increases the amount of rainfall except on the months of June to August, where the deficit is expected. So amount of rainfall might be felt during the months of December to May. So in conclusion, it is very important to also know the effects of ENSO condition in the Philippine climate, specifically here in Mindanao, on how the effects differ in different regions, because that means also different preparedness and action needed. So Philippines is also a favorite route of tropical cyclones, so that usually originates in the Pacific Ocean. So approximately 20 tropical cyclones enter the Philippine area of responsibility annually. So let us know then the effects of ENSO conditions in the tropical cyclones. So the Philippines has no tropical cyclone-free month. So every month we expect for tropical cyclone that might enter the Philippine area of responsibility. So the ENSO impacts on tropical cyclone shows the frequency of tropical cyclone that might enter PAR. So TC activities or tropical cyclone activities during neutral condition, yung green na color, is above average in all quarters. And below TC activities, red color is observed all year round during El Nino. So in La Nina naman condition, above average TC activities, the blue one, are expected during April to June and October to December, but below average TC activities during the months of January to March and July to September. So tropical cyclone landfalls in neutral condition are above average. So which means during neutral condition, most of the TCs that enter PAR have greater probability of making landfalls, so significantly during January to March and October to December. So during El Nino condition naman, all quarters have below average TC landfall counts. So during the La Nina, January to March and July to September exhibit below average TC landfalls. In contrast, the considerably above average number of TC landfalls during April to June and October to November. So comparing also the tracks of tropical cyclone during El Nino and La Nina, tropical cyclones need warm sea surface temperature to strengthen and develop. So during El Nino, most TCs develop in the warmer water of the Pacific Ocean, while during La Nina, generally more tropical cyclones develop closer to the Philippines. So that is why above average frequency of TC is observed during neutral and La Nina conditions. So the frequency and category of tropical cyclones during ENSO events. In all three ENSO events, more number of tropical cyclone is expected from July to December. However, there is significant risk of more TCs during July, even during El Nino condition. So in terms of TC category entering PAR, more typhoons and super typhoon categories enter PAR during September to November. That's during El Nino years. So thus, though it is El Nino condition that decreases the frequency of TC that enter PAR, however, and contrary, it may increase the intensity. So now in terms of landfalling TC category, more typhoon and super typhoon categories made landfall during October and November. That's during El Nino years. So for the summary of my presentation and significant points, so Soxargen, Barm, Northern Mindanao, and Zamboanga Peninsula, climate types, type 3 and 4. So Davao region, climate type 4. Caraga region, climate type 2 and 4. Rainfall distribution is greatly affected by monsoon and other weather systems, including the ENSO and tropical cyclones. Therefore, careful planning and timing is necessary in order to minimize their negative impacts and maximize its potential benefits. So thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the workshop. So that's all for my presentation. See you again later during the workshop session and open forum. So back to you, to the host.
Thank you very much, Miss Arian. Daghan kayong salamat. I'm sure na-overwhelm kayo sa data, but definitely that's very important, no, for us to understand climate change or climate profile in Mindanao. That's the importance also why MEM really initiated this type of seminar, because kailangan talaga natin i-bridge yung gap, no, like understanding the science of and the technicalities of it, no, of the climate and weather. And isang ano naman, andyan pa ba yung mga participants? Of course, virtual thumbs up naman if nandyan pa kayo. Okay. Thank you once again, Miss Arian, for that insights and for the inputs, no, that really give us the better understanding of Mindanao's climate, and this can help us connect better, no, with a wider audience. For example, for teachers who are in front of the class, teaching them climate change communication, disaster risk communication, and also for the members of the media who are here, no, particularly the members of the Davao City Disaster Radio, no, napaka-importante na we are exposed to this type of seminar workshop for you to also deeply understand, no, kung ano yung mga pinaghuhugutan natin ng data and information. Once again, maraming salamat. Reserve your questions later. Sci-fi, hindi na science communication. Thank you again, Ms. Marian. But reserve your questions later. We have an open forum. So let's proceed. No, it's already 10:10. No, we're 10 minutes ahead of our schedule. But next up, we have Cato Sarmiento. Cato Sarmiento describes her expertise as communication wrangling for mission-oriented organizations. Since 2018, she has been the communications manager at the Oscar M. Lopez Center, where she works with scientists and experts in communicating the relevance, risks, and impacts of the changing climate to Philippine communities. She participated in the Climate Reality Global Leadership Training in 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Cato Sarmiento.
Good morning. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Good morning again. I'm Cato Sarmiento. Thank you again to our MPRSD speakers, Ma'am Daisy Ree and Ma'am Arian, for their wonderful presentations and the technical work that they do, and spotlighting how weather and climate variables impact the regions of Mindanao. I hope you appreciate that spotlighting. Most regular climate reporting or weather reporting don't really hone in, lalo na in mass media, don't really hone in on specific regions. We work primarily with PAGASA, and when PAGASA Central gives a communication, normally it's for the entire Philippines. It's not always fine-tuned to the region. So thank you, Ma'am Arian and Ma'am Daisy. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak on and discuss climate change communication with communicators and educators, especially those coming from Mindanao. The power and resulting responsibility that you have to shape minds through your students or the publics you serve are crucial. You don't just impart knowledge, but you give your audiences the agency to act for themselves and for others. The data presented by Ma'am Arian and Ma'am Daisy may seem overwhelming, but they see all of these data as part, the weather and climate variables as part of a system. As communicators, we are challenged to take a look at the same data, break them up, reorganize and reframe them so that they can be appreciated in more familiar contexts, such as anticipating and preparing for monthly weather hazards. But before I proceed, let me take a slight step back first. While I do climate communication work, my background is actually in creative writing and marketing communications. So if our previous speakers are scientists, I am more science adjacent. Most of my career has been devoted to lending my skills to causes or organizations that need to be able to communicate in specific ways. And I have found, whether in the academe or in corporate organizations, people can be short-sighted when it comes to communications. The focus falls heavy on the message that the sender wants to release, while keeping the target audience in mind when crafting that message kind of gets lost. In mass communications, the metrics of success still tend to be reported in quantities. The number of views, likes, shares, articles published. But these do not necessarily speak of engagement, of impact, of behavior change, of influence, of discourse. And yes, these are admittedly more difficult metrics to measure. But as communicators, that should be our goal. With the internet and social media, communications have become more savvy and creative. But do these translate to effective communication? In the midst of the pandemic, for example, we've been inundated with Facebook posts, tweets, TikTok challenges, group chats about a pandemic and how the virus behaves, what to do or what not to do, whether vaccines should be taken or not, whether we should now declare the end of the pandemic, etc. Some of the messaging we receive sounds simple, some very doable, and unfortunately, a good number of them are also too good to be true, very wrong, misinformed, or simply misguided. I would like to think that the misinformation and misguidance stem from a need to try and simplify issues that are quite complex, partly technical, but mostly just beyond the average of what you and me know about technical stuff, like viruses and pandemics, into something familiar, relatable, actionable. Climate change is a similarly complex problem, thus communicating it is also a complex task. There is so much room for misinterpretation, misunderstanding, and miscommunication. Unlike the virus, the impacts of climate change are sometimes a little too abstract, long-term, and yet almost invisible on a daily scale. You can track new COVID cases every day, but tracking carbon emissions on a daily basis might not convey the gravity of the situation. Let me give you the context in which I work. If you haven't been involved in the climate science community in the past 10 years, I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't heard about the Oscar M. Lopez Center. Founded in 2012, a year before Typhoon Haiyan by our namesake, Oscar M. Lopez, or OML as he was fondly known, the center was built because he had the foresight to realize that if their companies were already struggling with recovery from the various disasters that regularly visit the country, how much more difficult would it be for everyone else to recover? At that time, despite being an archipelagic country with 7,641 islands, the fifth longest coastline in the world, and historically vulnerable to extreme weather disturbances from the Pacific Ocean, there were only a literal handful of climate science researchers in the entire country. The center was created to help address the apparent science research gaps on the state of the Philippine climate, our vulnerability and hazards, and the potential impacts of the changing climate on our country. As a science research organization, our center has primarily worked on climate data to develop them into information that can support climate resilient decision-making. We partnered with PAGASA to produce the State of the Philippine Climate, an annual publication that summarizes the country's essential climate variables and notable climatic and weather variables. It aims to aid policymakers, local governments, and other stakeholders in their decision-making towards science-based climate change adaptation and disaster risk management. The 2020 version is up on our website. Our colleagues are currently working on completing the state of the 2021 and 2022 Philippine climate. Based on the state of the Philippine climate, in 2019, we also produced the Philippine Climate Almanac, the first of its kind in the country, which highlights record-breaking and significant statistics of climate-related variables, extreme events, and disasters across 7 decades. We also worked with the Climate Change Commission to develop the Philippine version of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC reports. These reports sift through and analyze the scientific studies available on climate change in the Philippines, including its impacts, vulnerabilities, adaptation, and mitigation, to give policymakers a way forward. Cycle 1 is available for download on our website, and Cycle 2 of the PhilCCA is currently being completed. The center has also been producing the Climate Disaster and Development Journal, an open-access peer-reviewed journal on advances in climate science and its interactions with disasters and development. In addition, we have given a number of grants that pursue scientific inquiries on climate. This work is still at the core of what we do, and the climate change research available since our founding has greatly increased. But so has the effects of climate change. There's enough science available, but why aren't we seeing the action that we expected? So in 2018, our chairman, Federico R. Lopez, challenged the center to recalibrate its mission and look into not just building on the science, but also bridging the knowledge to action gap. For a small science-based center like ours, that meant primarily recalibrating our knowledge products to ensure that they are actionable. But it has also meant looking outside of our comfort zone in the climate science community to have a better understanding of what actionable could be and find collaborators who could help us bridge that gap. Part of the shift towards bridging the knowledge to action gap meant trying to have a better grasp of how Filipinos understand climate change. Despite being one of the most climate vulnerable countries in the world, not too many of our people and communities fully appreciate how climate change impacts them. As Ma'am Arian presented, we actually have 4 climate types, but most people only know tagtuyo at tag-ulan. And the 4 climate types not only differentiate the annual experience of rainfall, but it also means there are different climate risks. Quite literally, what happens on one side of the mountain is different from the other side of the mountain. Many are aware of the hazards that come with climate change, such as intense tropical cyclones, drought, flooding, but the processes and variables behind these are not always understood. In our publications, we try to help explain climate variabilities such as temperature, ITCZ, the monsoons, and risks such as storm surge, drought, and tropical cyclones. To this end, one of the center's efforts to communicate the science better is through data visualization or preparing information in a more visual way. The power of visuals capitalizes on the fact that humans are 70% visual creatures. This means that 70% of our sensory stimuli are processed visually. Apart from this, most of us are visual learners. Studies have shown that visual cues such as color, shape, or size can increase a person's comprehension of data. In fact, studies found that using visual aids can be 43% more persuasive. What you see on this slide is the visualization of the same type of data in our State of the Philippine climate. Above are the annual mean temperature anomaly, and below are the maximum and minimum temperature anomalies. In 2014, which is the one to the left, the publication was more like a simplified technical report that you would expect that perhaps PAGASA would produce. And in 2018, we used color and flow for better appreciation of the change in temperature through the decades. Data visualization is also one way of developing derivative materials from our technical reports to make them more appreciable. This image is part of a visualization from the Philippine Climate Almanac, one of our publications co-produced with PAGASA. This shows you the timeline of temperature anomalies represented by the red blocks, as well as number of tropical cyclones represented by the line over the years. These would normally be represented by graphs or charts, but as you see, some visualization helps in improving comprehension. You can check this out on our YouTube channel while the almanac is downloadable from our website. From the Philippine Climate Change Assessment Reports is a visualization of the disappearance of Philippine forests over the last 100 years, as represented by the diminishing greenness of the Philippine map as more areas turn white. This is based on a visualization in the report, which was co-produced with the Climate Change Commission. As you see, data visualization can help not just in making information more attractive, but in actually making information easier to grasp. But data visualization is definitely not enough to turn climate information into action. The image from the IPCC shown on the screen is alarming and indicates that every generation is impacted by climate change. In fact, you should be a little bit more alarmed because the data presented here is based on global averages. And we know that the Philippines is more vulnerable and experiences climate impacts much more than other countries. So our future emission scenario can be bleaker. More than making data pretty, educators and communicators need to look at what role they can play in encouraging audiences to respond to climate change in a way that they are able to decide on the action that they need to make for themselves, for their families, for their communities. Inasmuch as we partner with technical experts to produce our findings and publications, we also partner with collaborators to help us bridge the knowledge to action gap to reach various publics, and we need to engage with these identified publics. In all aspects of the OML Center's work, we do our best to engage a diverse range of critical actors from the public, private, and academic sectors, as well as civil society, to ensure targeted and actionable knowledge is delivered to those who need it most. Yes, science is our backbone, but we also do not exclude the knowledge, insights, and expertise of those working on the ground, of community members who live with and face the brunt of climate impacts, and we engage them in research, capacity building, and enabling action. We look at knowledge to action in our work, including communications and engagement, as part of an organized strategy, which we call the Be Plus Aware framework. It's called Be Plus Aware because it drives us to change a beware situation to be aware by pushing the application of climate information in relevant ways. This framework guides how we develop our programs and projects, especially in our communications work. For example, one of our target audiences are policymakers. So aside from the Climate Change Commission, another policymaker that we engage with is the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. We worked with them on a study that focused on developing short and long-term policy recommendations to DENR's banner programs. That included developing a climate responsiveness criteria for evaluating programs, projects, and activities. As a result of the study, the DENR produced an administrative order that identifies the climate responsiveness criteria as a metric for their program development. We know concretely from our experience with the pandemic that local government units play a vital role in ensuring resilient communities. Based on the PhilCCA data, we developed an online decision support tool for local planners to help ensure that their local climate change action plans, or LCCAPs, are based on the actual identified risks in their area. To make this tool more usable to local planners, it actually produces outputs that are already in the format of the LCCAPs that they would need to submit. The ECCET helper is the knowledge part, and it is paired with another online decision support tool that helps with the action part. Project Upturn is an online inventory of pre-reviewed local climate change adaptation practices that local planners can refer to for programs, projects, and activities based on their LCCAPs. Our technical team is working on the phase 2 development of both online decision support tools. Complementary to Project Upturn is the Climate Resilience Challenge, which in a way crowdsources interdisciplinary and solution-oriented ideas that address climate risks. The competition required the solutions to be actionable by private sector, and the prize money is meant to help spur solutions development. Moving to private sector, in many ways, even the CCC has acknowledged that private sector paves the way for innovation and urgent action on climate change. Since 2018, we have been holding the OML Legacy Lectures, which underscore how climate action and environmental sustainability are complementary to business sustainability. In September, we are hoping to hold the third leg of the lectures. We also hold climate dialogues, where we try to identify and engage more actors into the climate change space. We engage groups who normally don't think that they are a climate actor, such as social scientists, nonprofits, and communicators, to think about their role in climate discourse and action. Currently, we are working on a project that tries to help address the vulnerability of the deaf in different parts of the country. The challenges that contribute to the vulnerability of the deaf go beyond having a sign language for weather and climate variables. Many do not have access to the same amount of science information that you do, and climate adaptations don't always consider them. Consider, for example, that most community early warning systems operate on the basis of sound alarms, which the deaf do not hear. Arguably, one of our most successful endeavors is through the Mga Kwento ng Klima, which highlights the Filipino perspective of climate change and how it impacts us. Aside from engagement programs, we have found that climate storytelling is important. It is in storytelling where we are able to depict the complexities of climate change and its impacts without necessarily getting too technical. It humanizes climate change. It visualizes what we say, that what happens on one side of the mountain is different from the other side of the mountain. How farmers are impacted in Luzon may be different from how farmers in Mindanao are impacted. I hope all participants were able to watch the MKK before this workshop. In case you haven't, it will remain available to watch for free on YouTube. Please share it with your friends and family. We try to make time to bring the documentary to film screenings and do Q&As afterwards. It is because of the power of storytelling that we continue to develop programs to try and surface more climate stories. In 2020 and 2021, we worked again with the Climate Change Commission to hold the Klima Film Festival, which encouraged young filmmakers to produce short climate films. As part of the competition, young filmmakers go through a climate film lab to help increase their awareness of climate change in hopes of helping them ground their stories in science. Finalists are additionally supported by prize money and film distribution support. If I'm not mistaken, the films are still available to stream for free on iWantTV. iWantTFC. In 2022, due to increasing demand, we pivoted to expand the short film competition to professional and independent filmmakers. Mga Kwento ng Klima short films. The current run, the 2023 run in partnership with Samsung, is currently ongoing. Also in 2021, we ran a grant competition specifically for communicators. The Balangay Media Project and Umalahocan Fellowship aim to organize local media practitioners and climate change advocates by building their capacities for science-based reporting and utilizing traditional, new, and out-of-home media to promote climate change adaptation and resilience building of communities. Grants were given for developing pitches, working on communication plans, and another for the best execution. We continue to support our fellows. Most recently, our Umalahocan Fellows were featured in a partnership with Asia Society Philippines entitled Ang Ating Kwentong Klima. Ang Ating Kwentong Klima, or Our Climate Story, is a 4-part series initiated by the OML Center and the Asia Society Philippines to showcase how climate change impacts Filipinos and to create more tangible discussions on climate risks and impacts. The series focuses on 4 climate change impacts: on food security, Kwentong Pagkain; on coastal and island communities, Kwentong Isla; on indigenous peoples and culture, Kwentong Kultura; and the Philippines' potential climate future, Kwentong Kinabukasan. It was later spun off to become 4 climate stories. It featured in the A Better Normal podcast of Puma Podcast. More recently, we've taken on the task of helping bring climate communication in homes and classrooms. We are looking to launch, hopefully soon, Klima Alam, an activity book that provides fundamental knowledge on climate change in the Philippines. Activities that parents and educators can do with children and provide them with initial ideas on how they can take action in their homes and communities. While climate change and its impacts are daunting, if we work together towards action collectively, even in imperfect ways, there is always hope. Last June 23, Pope Francis addressed creatives from around the world at a special event at the Sistine Chapel. He urged those present to act as catalysts for changes in society, stressing their contributions are essential to defend human life and the poor. He said, "They have no voice to make themselves heard. You can choose to become the interpreters of their silent plea. You have the ability to dream new versions of the world." I would like to end my session by sharing some of my reflections and key takeaways from the journey and endeavors that we are taking as a center. As communicators, creatives, and educators interested in contributing to climate communication and action, first remember that there are different climate realities and narratives in each region, While the OML Center and ABS-CBN DocuCentral teams tried their best to capture as many stories as they could in Mga Kwento ng Klima, there are many more left to be told. Climate risks, hazards, and impacts vary from region to region, province to province, sometimes barangay to barangay, and therefore the interventions needed by each also vary. People will not be able to find the appropriate action or solution if they are unable to understand their specific climate contexts and risks. The second, the pandemic has underscored the importance and agency of barangays and communities when it comes to action. It is still people on the ground telling their lived experiences who are the best storytellers. Scientists and communicators benefit from their insights. The third, don't lose sight of your purpose for communicating and of your audience. Media and communication practitioners, especially those in the regions, play a bigger role in their communities than just reporting on disasters. As much as each community has its specific climate risks, hazards, and interventions, each community has its preferred way of communication. And the last reminder, climate change is not a beat. In the same way that science cannot solely enable action, writing on or talking about climate change as if it were apart from the risks, impacts, and social issues that it exacerbates cannot capture what it would take for communities to truly work on building their adaptive capacities and resilience. We believe that our communities, our over 7,000 islands, will need the support of its communicators, such as yourselves, to truly become climate resilient. We hope you will be able to join us towards raising awareness on climate change and enabling action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kato Sarmiento. Palakpakan, digital palakpakan naman from our participants from Media Educators of Mindanao and our guest na nandito ngayon sa virtual room. It was very compact and straight to the point that people sometimes could be short-sighted when it comes to communication. At na-establish ni Ms. Kato na there's a need for MEM also na tulungan yung advocacy ng OML Center. And also, may mga members tayo sa media. Maybe you have questions for Ms. Kato later. Please reserve that for the open forum. And marami pa tayong mapag-usapan, Ma'am Jill, sa MEM, like the data visualization. How can this help also in the advocacy of conflict sensitivity and climate change communication and other advocacies of MEM. Thank you very much once again, Kato Sarmiento, Communications Manager of OML Center. Yung key takeaway ko today with her talk is be plus aware. Ang ganda no? So we can explore, Ma'am Jill, how we can help also in their advocacy. We can do a follow-up workshop on these subtopics. Thank you, Ma'am Jill. All right. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our fourth and final speaker for today. Donna May Lina is president of Ube Media and executive producer of PanahonTV, a multi-platform weather, climate change, DRR content program from the Philippines. She has been producing PanahonTV for more than 10 years. She's an active member of business and social civic organizations such as Management Organization of the Philippines, Women's Business Council of the Philippines, Probe Media Foundation, and National Communications Committee of the Girl Scouts of the Philippines. In partnership with the Makiling Center for Mountain Ecosystems, her company Ube Media has organized indigenous tree planting, boundary tree planting in Mount Makiling since 2013. She has participated in international media forums such as the Asia Broadcasting Union Forum on Disaster Risk Reduction and Climate Change in Bangladesh and in Macau. She completed her Master's in Business Administration Top Executive Program from the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila and Bachelor of Arts in Broadcast Communication cum laude from the University of the Philippines. She dreamed of seeing the Philippines to be a first world country and the leader in sustainability. Media Educators of Mindanao and sa participants, let us all welcome Donna May Lina.
Maraming salamat, Derf. Sound check lang. Am I loud and clear?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay, we're ahead of schedule, right? So,
Tama po.
magandang umaga, teachers, students, and fellow speakers. Ariane, Desiree, and Kato. Wow, that's a lot of information that we already have here. Usually, this is 3 days po, so this is recorded, and I know we'll be able to access all of the technical information and the wealth of information that we have. So I'll introduce myself again. My name is Donna Maylina, Executive Producer of PanahonTV. So maraming salamat, Jill. Thank you to the Media Educators of Mindanao for inviting us here. PanahonTV is the longest running program focused on weather, climate change, disaster risk reduction, and the environment and related news. Today, I will be sharing with you our best practices for weather reporting that we hope that you'll be able to find valuable in your daily life in helping you make decisions. Earlier, this was already mentioned. So why report Philippine weather and climate change? When I first got to doing this project a little more than 10 years ago as part of the Lina Group of Companies advocacies, a question was asked, why are you doing weather reports in a full 30 minutes and actually now an hour? So already discussed in the past 2 hours is it helps us in decision making. It helps us plan. It was already reported earlier, no? Whether we like it or not, weather and climate change affects our lives, from the clothes that we wear, the food that we eat, the way we travel, the way we gather. Earlier on, Kato already presented the visualization and forecast, and even our friends from PAGASA. With this, PanahonTV has made its mission to ensure that we deliver timely and accurate weather forecasts with the help, of course, of our National Weather Bureau, PAGASA. And this is one day for us here at this workshop. But PanahonTV, we air Mondays to Fridays at 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. with our co-production with 1PH Signal. We air daily Mondays to Fridays, and also on live TV 6:30 a.m. and also on social media. So para po araw-araw kailangan nating pinapanood ang weather forecast. So aside from daily airing of weather content from our weather reporters, we also, and of course with source from PAGASA. Next slide, please, Derf. So nakikita nyo po, that's our weather reporter, Francis Orsho and Ms. Pia Mercado. And aside from TV, we have other weather tools. We have our PanahonTV weather widgets. So for all the organizations here, we can provide this. This is an API that's available, so you can see this. This is targeted for Metro Manila because we are here, but we can also customize that to Mindanao. Okay, so aside from TV and online, we've also partnered with the national print organizations such as the Philippine Daily Inquirer, the Philippine Star, the Daily Tribune, Filipino Mirror, United Daily News, United News, Inquirer Golf, Business Mirror, and the Manila Times. So we provide this daily weather forecast to all of these print media partners so that this weather information is available to all of our kababayans and all our kababayans worldwide. So also with our online media partners. So hence, it's very important that we help PAGASA as well as other agencies get the word out there in terms of communicating weather, climate change, and other DRR information. So how do I understand weather information? I would like to take special note on how we always include the definition of the technical weather terms and what it will bring. So don't worry, for all the participants here, it is quite overwhelming, and that's why we air this daily. The other information is actually available online. So at Panahon TV, our infographics contain explanations together with the technical content so that these technical information are easy to understand. If you see on this infographic right now, where the weather system that is affecting the Philippines, for example, is the Intertropical Convergence Zone, then we have also the explanation below so that you're not lost. Of course, these was explained clearly earlier by PAGASA, pero we can't assume that everybody knows this technical information. So, for example, we'll have to repeat that the Intertropical Convergence Zone, an area where winds from the northern and southern hemispheres meet, is also considered as the breeding ground of low pressure area, or LPA, or weather disturbances. So si Ma'am Arian and Ma'am Daisy Ree will have to confirm, verify that, but of course we use our data from PAGASA. So what else do we provide? We create also public service announcements and explainers of various weather systems and reminder videos. These are all available on YouTube should you wish to use them as reference. A lot of it are what we call evergreen content, and then we do update that from time to time, reviewing also how different age groups also want to receive information. We are proud of our producers who've taken time to research and have our technical information checked by our friends also in PAGASA. So please take.
Tuwing sasapit ang second half of May hanggang second half of June, nag-uumpisa na ang madalas na pag-ulan sa ating bansa. Dahil ito sa southwest monsoon o hanging habagat na nakakaapekto lalo na sa kanlurang bahagi ng Luzon at Visayas. Binubuo ito ng warm and moist winds na nakakabuo ng mga ulap. Lalo pang lumalakas ang habagat kapag may low pressure area o bagyo sa loob ng Philippine Area of Responsibility o PAR. Kapag malakas ang habagat, mas maraming ulan din ang ibubuhos nito sa mga apektadong lugar. Pero kahit walang bagyo, posibleng magdala ito ng mga pag-ulan sa loob ng magkakasunod na araw. Kaya tuwing habagat season, tumataas ang posibilidad ng pagbaha at pagguho ng lupa.
Okay, so because we have a full hour for broadcast, we have the opportunity to give more details and nuance to the weather forecast and other available data. Panahon TV gives the daily dam update since we believe that this is important to communicate. One need not wait when things are critical. Okay, ulitin ko po, one need not wait when things are critical. So if you can see here, that's the Magat Dam. This is coming from an Excel file sheet from PAGASA. These are all accessible. We've simplified this to indicate that, for example, the dam level at the La Mesa Dam increased a little bit, and then you have that normal high level. So day in and day out, we actually release this information. So you can check, hindi nyo aantayin na, okay, critical na bago tayo mag-save ng tubig or mag-prepare. Panahon TV also releases comprehensive forecasts that include the 3-day forecast of key cities and tourist destinations, global weather, sunrise, sunset, humidity, and astronomical events. So aside from the weather, we also monitor our volcanoes and give volcano alert updates, other hazards, national earthquake drill reminders, and the RRMC updates, walang pasok, as well as climate change terms that people need to know. From these technical information that needs to be communicated, Panahon TV has created many segments and stories to better illustrate weather, climate change, disaster risk, so that these information become more relatable and that these can be sources of inspiration to call to action. So here you can see napapanahong kaalaman. And here is a special segment, shout out, because this story we have, our case study is a teacher. So yes, please play video.
Zero waste is not an overnight success. It's a process.
Taong 1995 nang bumiyahe si Dr. Daniel Knapp, isang recycling advocate mula Berkeley, California, patungong Australia upang makipagpulong sa gobyerno at iba't ibang negosyo ukol sa recycling at paggamit muli ng basura. Sa pagkakataong ito, nabuo ang ideya ng total recycling na naging basihan ng zero waste movement. Ang terminong zero waste ay dinala sa Katia, New Zealand, kung saan ginanap ang kauna-unahang Zero Waste Conference noong taong 2000. Simula noon, kumalat na ang terminong ito sa iba't ibang local at international na mga organisasyon.
Ang zero waste lifestyle o ang pagbabawas ng basura sa pamamagitan ng paggamit ng reusable products ay unti-unti lang nauuso sa mga Pinoy. Pero hindi pa ito gaanong napapalaganap dahil kulang pa tayo sa batas at mahigpit na implementasyon upang tuluyang mabawasan ng basura sa ating bansa.
Noong 2011, inihain ni Senator Loren Legarda ang Senate Bill 430 o ang Total Plastic Bag Ban Act of 2011. Nakasaad dito ang striktong regulasyon, paggawa, pag-import, pagbenta at paggamit ng plastic bags. Pero hanggang ngayon, hindi pa rin ito naipapasa sa Senado. Sa sumunod na taon, nagkaroon ng Plastic Bag Reduction Ordinance sa Quezon City. Dahil dito, nagbabayad ng 2 piso ang mga mamamayan sa kada plastic bag na pinaglagyan ng kanilang ipinamili. Pero sa kabila ng mga ito, hindi pa rin ganun kalawak ang kaalaman ng publiko sa tinatawag na zero waste lifestyle.
Isa siyang klase ng programa na mainam para sa ating kalikasan sapagkat kapag sinabi mong zero waste, mas konti ang mga magiging basura sa paligid kasi mas recyclable ang mga products.
Sa tingin ko yun yung maayos na pag-segregate ng basura para hindi siya hindi makalat sa bahay nyo or sa lugar nyo para hindi magkasakit yung mga nakatira sa paligid nyo.
Kwan nga eh. Yun nga masama nga ang epekto ng basura. Ang zero waste, napakaganda kung walang basura. Kaya nga zero waste.
Kung ang zero waste, dapat hindi tayo gagamit ng plastic. Kung pwede, mga paper cups, paper plate. Parang nakatulong ka na rin sa environment nun at saka sa mga... Ang pag-segregate ng basura, pabor din ako doon.
Para mas maintindihan natin ang zero waste lifestyle, nakapanayam ko ang isang guro at founder ng website na Zero Waste Filipina. Bukod sa pagtuturo sa paaralan, aktibo rin niyang ibinabahagi ang kaniyang advokasya.
So napakaraming misconception na kapag zero waste daw, wala talagang basura, no? But that is not true. There is still trash, but we are controlling the trash from going to the landfill, incinerators, sa ating mga highway, no? And from the ocean. Isa din yan sa mga misconception na ang zero waste daw ay para sa mga mayayaman, ang zero waste ay para sa mga may abilidad na makabili ng mga zero waste items. Pero that is a misconception.
Ayon kay Angelica, imbis na makipagsabayan sa nauusong zero waste items, dapat munang tingnan kung saan nanggagaling ang basura ng partikular mong lifestyle. Halimbawa, madalas ka bang bumili ng kape sa convenience store? Paalala ni Angelica, ang paper cups na pinaglalagyan nito hindi recyclable dahil meron itong plastic lining na hindi pwedeng makompost. Mas mainam kung bumili ka na lang ng thermal cup na magpapanatili sa init ng iyong inumin at pwede pang gamitin ng paulit-ulit.
So nagsisimula tayo sa mga maliliit na bagay na kaya nilang gawin. Halimbawa, pagtanggi sa plastic bags. Number 1 yan, hindi mahirap magtumanggi sa plastic bags. Ang ating mga eco bag ay maliliit lang, pwede nating ilagay sa bag, no? Pwede nating ilagay sa ating mga bag. So every time na tayo ay lalabas, pwede tayong bumili ng bilihin sa palengke o sa grocery without using plastic bags. Tatanggihan natin yung mga bagay na nakabalot sa plastic. Kasi kapag lalo nating tinangkilik yung mga bagay na nakabalot sa plastic, yung ating mga manufacturer, patuloy silang magpo-produce ng basura. Kasi yung plastic naman, it's not evil. Ang evil ay kapag naging single-use siya.
Ayon kay Angelica, may tinatawag na 5 R's na gabay ng zero waste lifestyle.
The first R is refuse, tanggihan. Okay, paano tayo makakatanggi sa mga plastic? For example, refuse the things that we don't need. Pagpupunta tayo sa mall, okay? May mga umaabot dyan ng pamphlet. At yung mga pamphlet na yon, the reason why they are glossy, kasi the paper is mixed with plastic. Next one, reduce the things that we need. So kapag nireduce natin ang mga gamit na ating kailangan, nare-reduce din natin ang mga basura na maitatapon natin kasi hindi na natin maigagamit. The next R is reuse. So kapag pipiliin natin, ang zero waste kasi is also anchored sa responsible consumerism. No? So kailangan ang bibili nating gamit yung magagamit natin ng pangmatagalan. And then the next one is recycle. Ayan. So kung mapapansin natin, hindi siya yung recycle, wala siya sa una. Nandito siya sa pang-apat. So ibig sabihin, we should make this as our last resort. No? If we cannot refuse, we cannot reduce, we cannot reuse, let's recycle. And then the last one is rotting or composting. So sa bahay nagko-compost ako. Meron akong small backyard, no? And then hindi siya perfect compost, pero as much as possible, ang kino-compost ko ay yung mga vegetable and fruit scraps. Zero waste is not all about plastic waste. Kasama din dyan ang food waste.
Bilang guro, hinihikayat ni Angelica ang kaniyang eskwelahan na gumawa ng eco bricks. Ito yung mga plastic na bote na pinalamanan ng basura. Ang may ipon ng mga bote gagamitin sa pagpapatayo ng kanilang retreat house.
Do not feel overwhelmed by what you see on social media, no? Because zero waste is not an overnight success. It's a process. It's a baby step to zero waste lifestyle.
Ang zero waste lifestyle maaaring nauuso ngayon sa mga Pinoy, pero sa totoo lang hindi dapat mawala sa uso ang pangangalaga sa kalikasan. Marami mang kailangang dapat ayusin ng gobyerno upang maipatupad ng mahigpit ang zero waste lifestyle sa ating bansa. Pwede na itong umpisahan sa simpleng paraan. Bawat isa sa atin may magagawa upang masagip ang kalikasan. Mula rito sa San Pablo, Laguna, para sa Panahon TV, ako si Eunice Huntayas.
Do not stop, never stop. Because our resources is limited. And yun yung ipapamana natin sa future generation. Huwag naman sana natin silang ubusan.
Okay, so it's not zero waste, it's not an overnight success. So is this workshop, this is a process that we will all go through. Panahon TV was also commissioned to do the Project Dina video by the Office of Civil Defense, and this video continues to be a reference for preparedness.
Dito sa Pilipinas, madalas nating nararanasan ang mga pinsalang hatid ng bagyo. Ayon sa PAGASA, kada taon ay higit kumulang sa 20 bagyo ang pumapasok sa Philippine Area of Responsibility at ang mga ito ang kadalasang nagdudulot ng malakas na hangin at pag-ulan na siyang nagreresulta ng mud flow, landslide, storm surge at flash flood. Upang makaiwas sa sakuna, dapat laging handa.
Bago dumating ang bagyo, suriin po natin ang ating kabahayan at kung hangga't maaari pagtibayin ang mga mahihinang parte nito. Mag-imbak tayo ng mga ready-to-eat na pagkain gaya ng tinapay, biskwit at delata na paborito ng pamilya. Mag-ipon din ng maiinom na tubig na maaaring tumagal ng hanggang 3 araw. Siguraduhin din natin na may laman ng mga gasol Tiyakin na may sapat na kasuotan at ihanda natin ang emergency survival kit. Pagsama-samahin ang lahat ng mahalagang dokumento at ilagay sa lagayang hindi kayang pasukin ng tubig. Magtabi rin tayo ng sapat na pera. Siguraduhin puno ang baterya ng cellphone. Ihanda rin natin ang ating mga flashlight, radyong debaterya at pito. Ilikas ang mga alagang hayop sa mas matataas na lugar. At paalala na sa ating mga kababayan na may taniman, anihin na ang mga gulay at prutas na maaari ng puno. Makipag-ugnayan sa lokal na pamahalaan para alamin ang pinakamalapit na evacuation center. Para sa mga kababayan naman nating mga isda, huwag nang pumalaot sa panahon ito dahil sa mga storm surge. Pag dumating na ang bagyo, manatiling mahinahon. Makibalita sa radyo, magbasa ng dyaryo, makibalita sa iba't ibang social networking sites, at manood ng telebisyon para alamin ang lagay ng panahon. Sa panahon ng brownout, huwag itabi ang mga kandila at gasera sa mga bagay na madaling masunog. Lumikas kung pinayuhan na ng mga kinaukulan. Ngunit bago ito gawin, isarado ang lahat ng mga bintana, ikandado ang mga parador, pintuan at gate, at patayin din ang main switch ng kuryente. Mag-iwan din ng mensahe kung saan pupunta at dalhin ang emergency survival kit. Huwag sumuong sa baha, subalit kung kailangan itong gawin, magsuot ng bota. Mag-ingat din tayo sa mga bukas na imburnal at iba pang daluyan ng tubig. Huwag tumawid ng ilog, lalo't kung ito'y lagpas tuhod na. Mag-ingat din sa mga ligaw na hayop na tulad ng ahas na maaari namang inanod ng tubig baha. Kapag lumipas ng bagyo, suriin muli ang bahay para alamin kung may nasira rito. Tiyaking walang outlet or kable ng kuryente na nakababad sa tubig bago buksan ang main switch ng kuryente. Ipaalam sa kinaukulan kung may nakitang nasirang kable o poste ng kuryente. Itapon ang mga naimbak na tubig ulan mula sa mga paso, lata at gulong upang hindi ito pamahayan ng mga lamok.
Bagamat ang bagyo ay isang hagupit ng kalikasan, tumutulong itong tanggalin ang polusyon sa ating atmosphere at karagatan. Nakakatulong din ang ulan na dala ng bagyo sa ating karagdagang supply ng tubig sa mga dam, lalo na kung tagtuyot. Hindi natin makokontrol ang panganib na hatid nito, ngunit maaari tayo maghanda upang maisalba ang ating kabuhayan at ari-arian. Tamang kaalaman ay kahandaan. Maging ligtas, maging panatag, Pilipinas.
Okay. So with this, I've prepared a few reminders and weather reporting. So again, this will be a first of many, Jill, of workshops that we will be conducting, right? Because this isn't just an happening. Madami po, like nakita nyo naman ang credentials ni na Ma'am Arian, tsaka ni Ma'am Daisy. So, but that doesn't mean that us who are, as Kato said, and the weather adjacent group, definitely we have a role here. So here are some tips that we can share with you. Kayang-kaya natin tong ma-apply later on in our workshop. Okay. So number one po is to ensure accurate and timely information. So here at our workshop, we PAGASA really lent their scientists here with us who really studied scientifically and have on-ground experience. That's why we have Daisy and Arian from Mindanao. So please get information only from official sources and always verify sources. PAGASA also releases sometimes. Uso na with AI, There are also fake sources, Media Educators of Mindanao. That's another training session to be done, how to differentiate from fake and real. And number two, when you get your source, please also acknowledge sources. There's always courtesy. Also ask permission if these are certain information that needs permission to be published. And a lot are also or references. So kindly indicate also the time and date of source, especially for bagyo information. Meron pong time period yun. Okay. Next. All right. Communicate clearly and effectively. I'm sure the teachers here already know this, but just to emphasize, to use verbal and non-verbal cues. This is also a challenge. Earlier, Kato mentioned there are different abled people also, some disabilities, and those are challenges that we have yet to address. And this is something that I've learned also in other conferences. So it says here, speak in a calm and reassuring manner. Number three is to practice various tones for emphasis during inclement weather, balancing call to action and relaying information. This is something that we have been studying in a talk that I attended. Someone from the NHK basically shared their experience of the Sendai earthquake. So pag nagko-communicate ng inclement weather or things that need some necessary action, there should be a change of tone also para lang pag-deliver ng good news or bad news. So this is something that needs to be practiced as well. And then to visualize information. Okay, next slide. So this is what we are doing with Panahon TV and also partnering with other media networks and association in this avenue. Also, this activity is one of those activities that we would like to make the information available. This is what PAGASA is also asking help from us. That's why we've collaborated with them, and we've collaborated also with Signal 1PH. So this information needs to be available on television, print, radio, online, billboard, and even text messages. Okay. And you need to be prepared by constantly learning. Gaya nga ng sabi ni Teacher Angelica dun sa video, no? This isn't a zero waste, even weather forecasting. It's not an overnight success. I'd like to share that in our team of producers, of our technical team members, we have our reading exercises, photo exercises, and also we attend and participate in conferences here so that we can also learn from other people. Okay, next slide, please. And similar to the things that we are excellent in, it has to be a daily habit. So make it a daily habit to check the weather reports at 5 a.m. PAGASA also has their weather forecast on their social media channel. They actually now broadcast as early as 4 a.m. And during inclement weather, wala pong holidays ang PAGASA at ang Panahon TV. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so in summary, number one is to ensure accurate and timely information in weather reporting. Number two, communicate clearly and effectively. Number three, make the information available. And for everybody here, prepare by constantly learning. And how do we get that? Today, it's medyo overwhelming, but we can break that down to smaller bite-sized pieces. Parang you can't run a marathon rin overnight. So this is what we really espouse in Panahon TV, that you need to make this and make it a daily habit. Make it a daily habit to watch and listen to weather reports. And practice and learn from the best. So we're very privileged to be invited to this PAG ANDAM SA PANAHON workshop. with these my fellow speakers. So ito po yung aming team that's with Doc SP Kayanan during our 10th year anniversary. So that you see the human faces along with our weather reports. So if you'd like to find out more information, we're also very happy to share and conduct workshops with you together with Media Educators of Mindanao. That's my email here. I'd like to share kanina when Dirk introduced, those are the alibangbang trees that we planted on the border of Mount Makiling, and of course the team from PanahonTV and Ube Media. You can also follow me on Twitter and also on Instagram. So maraming salamat po. I'll turn it over to Dirk.
Thank you very much, Ms. Donna. Daghang salamat from Media Educators of Mindanao. And I'm sure that maraming questions and gustong i-raise na mga questions ng ating mga participants. But I'd turn this over to Ma'am Jill for knowledge check. Ms. Jill?
Hello, everyone. So, kumusta na? Okay. So many, information overload. No, we had 4 speakers, from science, very sciencey. Tama yung sabi ni Katoy kasi we both do creative writing in college. Malay ba namin sa science na yan? But yet here we are, trying to put together this workshop and make sure that everybody finds the relevance in climate change communication. So there were 2 speakers on scientific technical grounding on climate change, particularly, we found out what's the climate profile in Mindanao, iba-iba, per region. And in fact, I would sometimes kinisip ko, dapat nga yung reporting siguro per district na. Kasi, napapansin ko, dito sa Catalunan Grande, umuulan, pero sa Matina, hindi. Di ba? So parang, gano'n na ka-specific yung weather. And I think that's why, because this helps us in our decision making, diba? In our practical daily lives, we really need to understand this. And then we had Kato, sharing on that we should bridge the gap from the scientists. We have Ma'am Arian and Ma'am Desiree, experts in their field, but to a typical student person, to a typical karaniwang tao, diba? Paano natin sila ma-reach and ma-inform. And I was really struck with, oo nga, how about those hearing impaired? Actually, kanina ko lang talaga naisip because while we were playing the videos of Andam Davao na, diba, alarms, diba? So, paano yun? So, hindi naman natin sila pwedeng isipin, And then, of course, Donna here, shared to us their best practices, and that's why we have invited the agency of CIO and Disaster Radio kasi para we could really work together and help each other kasi baka may alam ding best practices CIO and Disaster Radio which they can share later in the open forum this afternoon, and then we can do a lot of discussion. So the open forum will still be this afternoon, but today lang just quick feedback. Okay, so let me just get ano ba yung mga nakuha nyo? I already shared mine. Let me ask from Ma'am Merly of LPU. Ma'am Merly?
Hello po, good morning. Hi, good morning everyone. I would like to share also some of my insights, discussions. First and foremost, I am deeply grateful for today's workshop and I extend my admiration to our scientists, development workers, communicators, and all participants who have dedicated themselves to tackling the pressing issues of climate change. To add to the discussions kasi it's so rich, unta mas daghan patag ingon ani nga mga klase nga discussions, especially for media educators. Gusto lang po ko mag-share na before I became a media educator, I used to work for a non-government organization organization. Particularly, the program was all about climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction, or CCADRR. We worked with disaster-prone areas sa Davao River watershed. And then in my fieldwork, I have realized the indispensable role of grassroots communication. Kasi even among individuals who have been directly affected by flooding, for example, and then they have suffered the loss of property and loved ones, there is often a lack of a sense of urgency when it comes to addressing their climate change related problems. And then based sa aming engagement with the communities, different communities, no, upland to sa May Bukana area, this lack of urgency can be attributed to a lot of factors. There is this one, mayroong immediate need to secure a source of income. So ang communities, they rarely attend mga workshops, seminars to increase their knowledge about their situation kasi they have to look for a source of income, no? Manginabuhi sila. There is also an absence of viable alternatives for relocating from disaster-prone communities, although we already have existing na policies regarding na i-relocate ang kaning mga bahuunon na mga communities, no, but dako pud siya kanang there are qualifications for a specific family to qualify for that, so not everybody qualifies for relocation. There is also this lack of effective community governance structures, kaya na-realize namin sa program na it's also important pala that communities, families, for example, are trained on governance na when it comes to mitigating the effects of climate change sa kanilang own na mga families, di na sila maging dependent sa government or sa other man na pwede makahelp sa kanila. And also a reactive, no, rather than proactive approach from the government, among others. Meron lang akong gustong i-share kasi sana ka nang di ako ni makalimtan na incident. There was a time when we were doing a flood drill and a fire drill in a specific community, a barangay here in Davao City. Even if the barangay was part of the ad hoc committee of our program, they got so mad sa amua, no, because bakit to kami nag-initiate na dapat sila lang daw. Nagalit ang kapitan on the day of the drill kasi pinamukha daw namin sa kanya na wala silang ginagawa. When in fact, months na ang collaboration with them and they also approved the drill. So the drill pushed through pero di lang na ako siya makalimtan because I can't believe that even those excellent efforts from private sectors, non-government organizations, individuals, naagid da igyapon aspect na politikahon siya sa mga gusto mo politika. And then in the barangay setting, the most powerful voice when it comes to the political structure kay ang barangay captain, no? So if mo know si kapitan, dako gid kayo siya nga impact. On the other hand, I also want to share this one success story on the ground that need to be known. One inspiring success story sa amuang na experience that time was the resilience demonstrated by the Sama Dilaut community, or as we call it, Badjao community in Barangay Bukana in Davao City. This indigenous community, despite not fully understanding the technical aspects of climate change, has experienced its impact firsthand kasi unique ang kanilang living conditions. They're living on stilts and relying on fishing for their livelihood. They face immense challenges during typhoons and floods, and traditionally, ingon pa nila during our mga conversations with them, nga pag habagat daw, languyon lang na namo ma'am, no, murag ingon ana kaya ra na namo languyon because we are good swimmers, something like that. However, when a devastating typhoon struck, they lost everything, and then despite having limited resources, ganing you realize na wala na gani sila kaayo. Karon apektuhan sila sa typhoon, they need to start again, no, rebuild their lives once more. So this experience prompted them to recognize na the importance of disaster preparedness. one of the projects of that program, tapos na kasi ang program years ago na, I think it was 10 years ago na ang part sa project simple, no, an emergency kit, or we call it a buckwheat bag. And then because of that experience na nawala lahat sa kanila, they embraced the concept of having an emergency kit, or these buckwheat bags, which are essential supplies to support them during emergencies. The shift in mindset and adoption of preparedness practices reflect their determination that they want to protect themselves and their families in the face of climate-related challenges. And to bridge this gap, lastly, we realized in the program that it is imperative to prioritize grassroots communication strategies. We must engage directly with the communities at the local level, ensuring that their voices are heard. They are part of the plan, no? Part din sila sa planning process, and their knowledge and experiences are acknowledged. A one-size-fits-all approach to climate change may not resonate or effectively engage communities with diverse backgrounds and contexts. So by taking the time to listen, learn, and understand the community's perspectives, we can develop communication strategies that are more relevant, second, relatable, and meaningful to them. Yan lang po. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Merly. And good that you mentioned grassroots communication, no? Or communicating to our grassroots community, because this afternoon we will actually have invited somebody from Egypt Foundation. They work with indigenous communities, no? In mitigating the effects of climate change. So he will talk about this later as our action call this afternoon. So thank you for bringing that up kasi talagang na-connect. Okay, so I'll call one more. Okay, feedback, just a quick feedback from what we have learned so far. Remember, this is not yet our open forum. Mamaya pa yung open forum natin, and our open forum will be really ask the questions kasi sobrang introductory pa ng lahat ito ngayon. So I know you have so many questions, especially those who are practicing weather reporting right now. I'm sure you have so many questions to ask Ma'am Donna and Ma'am Kato, no, later. Okay, let me call Trixie from CIO. You were nominated by your boss, joke lang, to give a quick feedback. So far, how's the agency coming along with this workshop? Is Ma'am Trixie here? Ay, wala. Parang wala si Ma'am Trixie.
She's here, pero
She's okay. Sige. Okay, maybe let's your server feedback na later for the Q&A para dire-diretso. No? Sige. So let's have one final feedback from Sir Enzo. Sir Enzo, are you ready?
Alam, madungog pa ko, ma'am. Naapa ba ko?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, kay full TV akong connection, no? Okay. So kung madungog pa ko, ma-share ko sa akong insight na lang. Okay, so I would like to share based on where I came from the academe, no? Based on my training from Forum ZFD, I always uphold that philosophy that teachers have a multiplier effect, no? In terms of the depth and breadth of our influence to our learners. Yun po yung aking premise. And in relation to this webinar, I would say that this workshop on climate change is very much connected to the cause of MEM for responsible and quality journalism.
Thank you, sir.
Sa connection ni Sir Enzo.
We need to understand climate and weather before we can thoroughly report about it.
Sorry.
Using the lens of conflict-sensitive journalism, our framework in writing and reporting is to sensitivity is our lens also to educating for them to prepare rather than making climate is similar to understand to be working with partners of MEM, no? Right now, who have the and visualizing for our content. We also strategize our teaching. So integrate all this to our teaching, then somehow we remain relevant for bringing in the truth to our students who will also educate their families, their friends at home. Yun na po ang sharing ko, Ma'am Jill. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Laban lang talaga, no? So yeah, thank you for bringing that up because that's our mission here in MEM. We really want to fight disinformation. There's a lot of disinformation about climate change. Okay, so I guess it's time now to prompt the workshop. So actually, we're supposed to prompt this afternoon, but since we are ahead of time, which also gives you a little bit more time, no, to work on your workshop output. Now, remember, this workshop output is very important so that you can complete the requirements for the certificate of completion. Okay, so let me call in Sir JD.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Go ahead.
All right. Yes. So yes, good morning, everyone. And I was tasked na to give the instructions for the workshop, no, sa pag-andam sa panahon na activity natin ngayon. So at the onset, no, let me just again thank you. Thank the resource persons that we have now today. So we have Ma'am Desiree Flores na talk about the Climate Change 101, where we learned of important things like the difference between weather, climate, and that that climate change is not equated to climate variability, yung impacts of El Nino tsaka La Nina, tsaka yung there's a rising trend na of temperature both in the global and the local scale, which is related to global warming, and a slight increase na of intense tropical cycles for the past 35 years, and so many things by that she shared earlier. And also, we're also grateful to Ma'am Ariano for sharing her talk about the climate profile of Mindanao, where we learned also the different climate types per region, and also inspiring talk by Ma'am Kat Sarmiento on communicating climate change, where she basically inspired us about to take action of now that we know of these things, then what should we do? Right? Now yung framework din nila on be plus aware. At saka, of course, yung practices in weather reporting by Ma'am Donna, where she talked about reminders and that the best practices in weather reporting, like for instance communicating clearly and effectively. I think in communicating science, it has to be we have to make sure that we communicate it in a manner that's understandable to everyone, and we make this media available, accessible, and of course that our target audience will find this usable. So for our you asked for it. Now, based on the results of the survey, you guys said that 70% of you said that you are willing to mitigate the effects of climate change through the use of the creative arts like music, film, and drama, and among others. So our workshop for this is an application of our activity this today. We will ask you to create basically a media that will communicate science of climate change. So the bigger picture of this, I think, is for us to produce something that's useful for our in the classroom. Now, since all of us, I think, all of us here are teachers or media educators. So you can choose not to work individually or by pair or in groups. So I think you guys will be given the freedom to decide whether you work on your own or by with someone or in groups. All right, and then in addition, you can choose from any of these media formats. So you can choose to produce a short video story or reel for TikTok or for Instagram or for Facebook. Now, so this can be a dramatization, a song, or a dance, or etc. So the idea is for you to be creative, no? And then you can also decide to choose the media format photo essay, And then the photo has to have a caption with it. And also you can choose infographic or advocacy poster. This one probably you can decide to work on or using Canva. No, kasi may template na doon, no, an infographic or on poster. At saka you can also choose short essay, no, a short essay. So it's a blog post or an opinion piece. So you have to translate your understanding of the climate change hazards into the story using any one of these media formats. And when you post it sa social media, it has to be within today, and it has to be accompanied with your key takeaway as the caption of your post. And please do not forget to include the hashtags pag-andam sa panahon, hashtag MemTalks Climate Change, and hashtag Mindanao Climate Change. So again, your key takeaway as caption of the post, and then these hashtags. Please don't forget to write or to include this in your post. Now, your social media post has to be, of course, made public. And please also tag the Facebook account of Media Educators of Mindanao. You will be given probably 2 hours not to create their output, since sayo panahuman ka rin, so you'll have more time to produce your output. And also, you will have to log the social media link of your output into the Padlet. This link to the Padlet will be shared with you through the chat box, or it will be sent to your email. Okay, so please don't forget to log the social media link of your output to the Padlet. Now, in order for you to receive the certificate of completion, these requirements, and plus the final evaluation and the completion of the part 1 will have to be, you have to do this para makareceive ka sa certificate of completion. And then later on, we will choose one of each type of the media output for you to present it to the big group, and then our resource speakers here will also give their constructive feedback sa inyong output. Now, we will be choosing winners based on your output. We will do that. We will announce that on July 3, on Monday next week. So may premyo, Ma'am Jill, no?
Meron.
Of course. Natin.
May premyo.
So, yes, may pagbigay na prize si Mem sa mapipiling winner based sa kanilang output. All right, so I think that's basically it. Now, so again, thank you to our speakers, and thank you to everyone who participate, who are here this morning for our training and workshop, and good luck sa pag-produce nyo ng mga outputs nyo.
Okay. All right. So, okay, I'll end this morning session. So again, reminders lang, if you have not registered with us, we have no way to send the mechanics to you. Of course, hindi nyo naalala lahat yung mga pinagsasabi kanina ni JD, but somehow it gave you an idea already. So please send us your email address here in the chat box so that we can send the mechanics to you. The mechanics will also give you the link already to the evaluation form. Okay, so if you really want the certificate, please accomplish the requirements, and please attend this afternoon because you will still have the open forum. No? Kasi again, marami pa tayong kailangang pag-usapan. We will also hear from Egypt Foundation to talk about what can we do to help, especially our indigenous communities in terms of effects of climate change on them, or how they can cope with it. Okay, so it's 11:30. We can have our lunch now. The Zoom link will remain open, okay? But please, you can come back here by 1 just for attendance check, but you can still do your work, your output until what's the time again? Until actually until let's 2:30 na, or 3 p.m. ang pinakalas, but 2:30 we will start checking already if you're done. All right. So just again, log in by 1 o'clock para lang for attendance check. Okay? And so again, thank you and have a good lunch.